Good morning. The June 16th work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Trent? Here. Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Riddendell, can you speak to the board about the items on the agenda for today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On today's agenda, we have the first public hearing for some proposed policy revisions, and then a series of presentations. First presentation will be on our student achievement at PM3, really good news to share. Then we'll have a presentation on some proposed policy revisions to the procurement and contracting policy, and then some updates about our strategic plan with facilities, strategic plan update with financial services, and then a financial update for fiscal year 26 and 27.
First on our agenda, we have the first public hearing on policy revisions. We will, in accordance with Florida law, accept speakers, board policy review, and rule development on the following policies. Policy 5610, is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Okay. Policy 5771, is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Policy 7540.02, is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Policy 7540.03, is there anyone present who wishes to address these items? Anyone present who wishes to address these items? Paul, it looks like you might get out of this. Policy 7540.04, anyone present who wishes to address these items? Anyone present who wishes to address these items? All right, you're good, Paul. Thank you, sir. Our first presentation will be by Ms. Tara Harris, Assistant Superintendent in Intergalactic Curriculum and Instruction.
Intergalactic?
Thought I'd have a little fun, Ms. Harris. It's one of those mornings.
That was on purpose or
I've
what?
been called a lot of things, yes. Good morning. Ms. Dampier and I are here today to discuss our PM3 data. And we, while we did a high-level overview last week at Ascend with our school leadership teams, we are super excited because we're going to go into a deeper dive today to see a lot of the hard work that the school-based teams and district-level teams have done. And I think we are very proud of our students and success that they've had. So we're going to dive right in. We want to connect this with our strategic plan. So we talk a lot about being intentional around school improvement and changing student outcomes, knowing that one of our objectives is all schools an A or a B. And I just cannot wait for the state to release our school grades because I think we're going to be very proud to see some increase in percentage of schools. What I will tell you is that's typically around the second or third week of July. But as soon as we have that information, we will be sure that you have it as well. Another one of our metrics that we measure is looking for an annual increase for ELA with 3% annually, and in math, 4%. I think it's very important to say that we have challenged our school teams, but also our district teams to make bold moves. So I know you know that we had partnership with school leadership of an intentional instructional walk system where we walked had hundreds of school walks. This was not always loved by many, but I think that success breeds success, and we were very intentional with how we utilized our positions, both at the district level and the school level. And I see that now, I think you will see that we have data showing that was the right work and really leveling up and raising the bar and expectations for our schools. So we're going to start right out with K2 early literacy. We've talked a lot about mighty moves over the year, and I think these next two slides, you're going to see the impact of that. Typically, this is where I do the messaging around ELA assessments for K2, where not all students take the same assessments. For a quick review, I also have it on the slide to help with this. So for on-grade level students in kindergarten, they are taking that early literacy assessment. So you will see increases there. When we look at that early literacy for first grade and second grade, those are students with substantial deficiencies. And so they start with the on-grade level assessment and it bumps them back. So you will see district-wide, less than 170 first graders took that early literacy, and less than 45 when we're talking about district-wide, with approximately 5,000 students per grade level. Very few students in first and second are taking this early literacy assessment.
So to clarify, for those who don't understand, you want as many students in the far left bar as possible and fewer students in the middle and the right. So moving in the right direction.
So now where we see, this is where the majority of our first and second grade students, this is their on-grade level assessment. We have kindergarten on here because you see, we do have kindergarten students that are working well above grade level. And so this is something we want to celebrate. So we show this on here, but that is not where the majority of our kindergarten students, that would not be their typical assessment. So you see, again, increases across the board. And again, I go back to, we have talked a lot about those Mighty Moves being foundational literacy skills. This year, through grant funding, we were able to train all of our K-2 teachers in UFly, which is a system, an instructional system to support the Mighty Moves. So these percentages of proficiency will only increase. And the ultimate measure of that K-2 ELA program is your third grade student achievement. And so we're now going to move on. And if you will see, I don't know if you remember, but last year we were down 1% in third grade. And I just want to recognize the elementary team back here because our students and teachers actually get it off the ground, right? They implement. But when we talk about having a district-wide plan in response to that, especially when the numbers are not as expected, I think we're now seeing the results of that. And I just want to acknowledge the hard work that went into, we need to do something different to provide our students with third grade, different experiences in third grade. Something I also want to highlight is millage funds were used for any school that's not a school grade of A. They receive a third grade reading interventionist, and then our schools with underperforming subgroups funded by millage receive second grade interventionists. So those positions were integral. I also will highlight here, again, sometimes they're unpopular decisions, but in January, we moved our literacy coaches into interventionists. And because at the mid-year at PM2, our trajectory of data was not where we wanted it to be. And so I think you see a big jump in third grade this year, which we are super excited about. That is its own cell when we talk about school grade and district grade. So to see that improvement, we have a lot of different efforts, but we need to thank the people in the schools because they had to make some moves that we were moving their area of comfort, but it changed outcomes for students.
That's awesome. Before you leave that slide.
Yes.
Before you leave that slide, I just wanted, because of something you said about last year's third grade scores going down, when we're looking at all these, I would just always keep in mind for me that we're comparing last year's third graders to this year's third graders, but I always like to look and see where they went. So if you compared last year's third graders to this year's fourth graders, same cohort of students,
Correct.
amazing progress. So that means that this fourth grade teacher set was able to pull that class up too. So that's really, really exciting to see as well.
And I think to that point, when you look, we do apples to oranges when we're doing last year's third grade to this year's third. But then when you look cohort, across the cohorts, we're sending more students on grade level at the start of the next grade level, but then the teachers that they have in that grade level are continuing that growth. So we're seeing a lot of growth, even apples to apples.
Mr. Chair? This is awesome. Great news. I'm just curious, can we get this information broken down by our district schools, the schools in our district?
Absolutely, I will get that to you today.
And did we see improvement across the board, or are there still some schools that are
That's an
needing
excellent
addition?
question to have. What we now know is we can pinpoint schools, and we're doing deep dives of what is happening on those campuses because we now have a recipe for success. And so we need to ensure that every student has an opportunity to experience that recipe. And so to your point, we have schools of concern that we are already working with, and last week at Ascend, talking about school improvement. Our team has already worked closely with school leadership on what our walkthroughs will be, and the frequency will be based on schools, their area of need. So you will see some schools are areas of concern, but overwhelmingly, we're seeing an uptrend, but I'll send you the report that shows where we are concerned.
Perfect, thank you. Great work.
Okay, now we're going to move to our secondary schools. So again, you will see moving in the correct direction. Even across cohorts, you will see growth. And this is a testament, I believe, to just Tier 1 instruction. When we strengthen Tier 1 instruction through teacher clarity, through coherence, through explicit instruction, that results in increased outcomes for students. And so you will see that in grades 3 through 10, well, K through 10, but we talk about district grade and school grade 3 through 10, but you will see upward trends in all areas of ELA. So we're super excited to celebrate with our students. Yes.
Sorry, and when we get to this part, talk about reading, my heart is always just burdened for the way the public sometimes sees this data and interprets it, because sometimes we get, especially when you look at third grade, and so I'm going to take just very brief 2 minutes, I promise, to address this, because they'll look at, let's say, our third grade reading scores and say, why are we celebrating only 63% of our third graders can read? And nothing could be further from the truth. And I just, as a person, I always want to add this personal element. As a parent of a child who struggled to pass the ELA test for years, but could read fluently, and no one would ever know. What this child couldn't necessarily do was share, what is the tone of this poem? What was the character's motivation? These tests are difficult. And if the student is not passing, one, we are supporting them right and left. You guys are supporting them right and left with the interventionists, with the coaches, with the teachers, with small groups and all of that. It doesn't mean they can't read. It means they can't pass the test. And we're going to do, I'm glad for this data. I celebrate when we have more students pass the test, but I want to make sure the public understands we're not celebrating that only 63% of our third graders can read. No, almost all of them can read what we would think of, consider traditionally reading. But this ELA test is so much more complicated. There's other layers that some students have disabilities. They're not coming with the background. They didn't get read to as babies, some of them, but even the ones who got read to as babies still struggle with this test. So I just wanted to take the moment to point that out, because sometimes the public interprets it differently. And as a parent who knows what it actually looks like, to finally celebrate the passing of the ELA when it mattered for graduation. This is something that it just frequently gets misinterpreted. So thank you for letting me take that minute before we get off of ELA.
Great point.
Ms. Campbell, you can talk all day today for all of us. Thank you.
I think I have something
Yes.
on my.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I will add before we move on, and this is where our partnership with student services and school leadership is so important, because I think sometimes when you're making judgments about our traditional schools, there is a misconception or a forgetting that we do serve every child that walks in the doors.
Absolutely.
And so students come with all different skill sets, and the school-based teams have to wrap those students around. And so sometimes it is not until further in their educational career that they are meeting with what the state considers on grade level or proficient. But a lot of services and support have come into that. So we definitely celebrate increases. Our goal is, all students a learning gain, all students proficient, that we will keep working towards. But we have much to celebrate. Our schools really have bought into the work, and we celebrate alongside them. So now we move to the area of math, and I've been sharing with you for a couple years now, and sometimes this is the slide that would get me. And this is where I'm going to speak to very strategic supports. At PM2, the elementary CNI team repurposed their staff to serve directly in our lowest 10 schools, because we knew that we have a lot of growth we wanted to make, and the numbers were not where we wanted. And so you will see, again, celebratory growth. These are not just small shifts. We're super excited to see the results of that very intentional work. This is not our stop. This summer, we've had teacher teams come in, and we've already created resources for ELA and math to hit the ground running for next year, August. But every year that we have more students working on grade level just builds that foundation for that student. So again, you will see continued success across the board. If you've been studying elementary math, this has not always been what our data has displayed. And so it's been very intentional supports. And again, we're able to go into those schools that need support the most and really help those students.
Mr. Chair? I'm just curious, is the reason for the big jump for third grade, since it's so much greater than the other grades, is that because these kids are having a stronger foundation early on?
I think it's twofold. I think there's stronger foundations. Our second grade data looked better last year than it had, so I think students are coming with greater skill sets. We also did something that was optional, but a lot of our schools are participating, is actually making slide decks of instructional tools for teachers so that teachers can use their planning time practicing delivery for students. And so I feel like when we're looking at how many teachers are actually using them, I think you'll see third grade, they really grasp onto that. And a lot of it is because if you're a third grade teacher, that's a big year. That is a heavy lift for our third grade teachers because it's the first year that of that statutory language around third grade proficiency. And so oftentimes the data doesn't look like this in reading and math for third grade. And I think that teachers are grasping onto those resources so they can focus with intentionality around that ELA. That is, and again, we're looking at by school data and really talking to teachers about, what led to this success. You heard me at Ascend, if you can't name what worked, you don't replicate it.
Right.
Like if it's luck or happenstance, that's not able to be replicated. But I think now we have systems in place where we're able to say, this worked, this didn't. If you're not doing this, you need to start doing this. Like when something's working, we need to name it and identify it to replicate.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about seventh grade, and I know you're familiar with this, but I know the public will look at this data, so I put it right on the slide. We made a very intentional decision. So students taking our advanced seventh grade math class, because the benchmarks that are assessed are both seventh and eighth grade, we moved to that eighth grade assessment. So we knew we would be making a flip. What our goal is that the percentage we went down, that we would go up +3 or +4 to make that strategic plan goal. But you will see our increase is significantly. It's we went down 14% and we went up 21%. So we exceeded what those outcomes were. While we don't have other districts' data public yet to see, this will align us better to many districts. So when we're looking at ranking, making this flip will give us a better idea of where we fall in comparison to other districts. So super proud of this data, even though the chart is, we knew that one year it was just gonna look uneven. So now we're gonna move into our EOCs. And so for these students, this is their at the end of the year assessment. And so these numbers represent for algebra and geometry, but again, you will see increases. Moving on to science. Again, I'm going to do a shout out to our voters' assistance with millage because we put in STEM units that heavily support our fifth grade science instruction. So that was like an extra dose of fifth grade science instruction in a hands-on, really exciting way that students enjoyed. But you will see across the board in fifth, eighth, and in biology increases of 4%. So that's across the board. We also this year implemented new instructional materials in the area of science, so we're seeing some outcome of that, as well as adding PENDA to 7th and 8th grade. So we're very excited to see science improvements across the board.
Ms. Harris, can you go back to the EOC stuff? They're
Yes.
really exciting stuff that people don't know anything about, really. Again, just like Ms. Campbell had talked about the reading scores of 63%. Same thing as a testing coordinator and a math teacher. That Algebra 1 and geometry, 54%, that's getting the 3. There are many A and B students that fail to get that 3 for various reasons, right? It's test-taking skills. It's, test anxiety, not seeing the question worded exactly the same way, not taking it as serious because they think, I'm an A/B student. It's a very difficult test. Quite a bit of tutoring kids on the EOC because it's challenging. So any increase like that, that's a big deal. So that's good. I know when I'm in the schools, the math departments and the testing coordinators, everyone takes these tests very serious because they know it's tough for all students regardless of what your class grade is. So I like seeing the increase there. So.
I have a question too. Oops, sorry. So these aren't broken down by grade, and then Algebra 1 is a graduation requirement. So does that percentage include students who might be 9th, 10th, 11th, even 12th graders who are trying one more time to pass it, and they end up doing a concordance score?
So these numbers do. This is all raw data.
Okay.
What we are awaiting is where we'll splice it because the data we're celebrating today, we know the potential of increase will be there when we get our finalized numbers. The numbers that we're seeing today, those are students that tested in May on our campuses.
Okay.
If they were not in attendance in October and February, their scores will be pulled out when we talk about school grade. But this is all raw data to include students that are taking it.
Who might have already taken it before.
Correct.
So when it comes to school grade, it's only the ones who are taking it the
First-timers.
first time.
Correct.
So actually, these numbers will be significantly higher.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Awesome.
This is our initial getting it to you, but we know that when we get that data that's scrubbed, that will remove those students that maybe were not BPS students or were retakers, that our number should increase.
Right. I mean, I love seeing these, but I
Yes.
love knowing that it's going to be
higher.
even better.
Yes. I also mentioned slide decks with some other content areas, but algebra is also an area. So we will have next year in elementary ELA and math. We will have some ELA secondary and algebra slide decks and biology. So what we have found from teachers is they'll be able to customize them however they want, but that the heavy lift will be taken care of to ensure benchmark aligned instruction, and then teachers can customize them to meet their needs. Those optional resources will be available. So we'll have them also for biology. And now we're going to move to our social studies achievement. And I will say, in our school walks that we're prepping for next year already, this was an area that when we walked campuses, we really focused on ELA and math. And we'll be adding to ensure science and social studies. So we will only get better in year 2 of our district-wide instructional walks, but we want to be sure in our secondary sites that we're including coaching and feedback through those instructional walks and our action planning in this area as well. So I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Dampierre.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to share some important information. I think I was sharing this information with Dr. Rendell, and we know this is good preliminary information. Our full data sets will come out in July. Like Mrs. Harris said, they will take out those students who are not here for both FTE periods, which would be October and February. So this is preliminary data that we're very pleased to share with you. And this piece of the pie is looking at the cohort, apple to apple, because what we wanted to see is our interventions and our supports and resources making a difference in our classrooms, because we put a lot of resources and supports in our schools. As you can remember and recall, that we restructured and provided an ESE support specialist for each school. And that position was very important because we wanted to make sure we focus on not just compliance, but also programming. And it goes hand in hand. So we committed to an ESE support specialist that actually spends 50% of their time doing compliance and 50% walking classrooms with the teachers as well as the principal and as well as our program specialists. And that was another important position that we actually implemented the first, I think it was last year, where we put program specialists at the district level that really focused on a cycle of support tiering our schools and looking at those schools who are, not being successful with the federal index and saying, where do we put the support that is needed? And so our program specialists and our resource specialists, they have a set of schools that they visit weekly, some bi-weekly, and some monthly based on the data to provide that cycle of support with walking with that ESC support specialist as well as with the administrator. And that's very important because when we're at Datacom, we have them say quite a bit of positive things about the support that they're getting with our team, as well as the professional development that we've provided over the last couple of years. We really are looking at more inclusive settings for our students because we know when students are with their like peers, they are going to improve tremendously, and this data will show that. The number of students achieving level 3 increased from 24% to 27% in 24 to 25, which represents a 3% increase, percentage gain. We saw a substantial increase to 34% in 25 to 27, which is a 7 percentage point gain over last year and a 10 percentage point increase overall compared to the last 2 years. So we're seeing positive results. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the support team that I have. We have Dr. Fontan and Dr. Baez, and we really have worked together to problem solve when we see that our schools are struggling to provide that support, that cycle of support, where the principal and the teacher is a part of that work, as well as classroom visits. We actually visit schools on a weekly basis to make sure that we're providing that support. Yes. And again, these results reflect the implementation of targeted support, and I said we were very strategic about the support, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. We've tiered our schools and consistent progress monitoring. You see in the Pulse, you see that data. We're constantly looking at the data as far as student achievement. We collaborate with CNI. We've done some professional learning development for our teachers to make sure that the general ed setting is cohesive with not just our general ed teachers, but also with our ESC teachers as well. And we provide collaborative teaching, and we've been monitoring that to make sure that our schools are providing that. So far, this year, we've provided over, it's about 40-something face-to-face professional learning opportunities. And we really feel like our teachers, when they're working together in the classroom, that all of our students would benefit, our general ed students as well as our ESC students. So overall, we've seen a 10% percentage gain. For our students with disabilities for math, we've considered continue to tread upward. The slide represents the number of students at level 3 and above, increased from 27 to 32%, which is a 5% percentage point gain. And we saw a substantial increase to 36% in 2025-26, which is a 4 percentage point gain from the previous year and a 9% increase from the last 2 years. And we credit this to really being strategic about looking at data, going in the classrooms and working with our school teams. And none of this would be possible without the teachers. They're boots on the ground, but working collaboratively with those teachers to make sure they have the supports in the classroom. And like I said, I would be remiss if I didn't say it. Also, school leadership, we've been all working collaboratively to make sure that all students are excelling. This is our ELL students. We have about 2,000 students who represent for fast reading. This slide shows the number of ELL students achieving level 3 increased from 2% to 5%, which is a 3 percentage gain. We saw a substantial increase to 20%, which is a 15% point gain over the last year and 18% over the last 2 years. And I credit this really to Imagine Learning is a resource that we really were strategic about making sure that our teams, our school teams were trained on it, providing that support, and then also monitoring that implementation. And you guys remember in the Pulse, we've been actually showing all of that data to make sure that where we see pockets that still need support, that is going to help us with where we need to go as far as school visits as a team, as well as boots on the ground, our staff here at district they're at schools. We're all at schools, making sure that we're monitoring instruction in the classroom.
That's tremendous.
This is fantastic. Fantastic. And I remember, I don't remember her name, it's slipping, the teacher that came who was our ELL district person, I think she,
Ann
yes,
Skinner,
Ann Skinner come
she
and
retired.
tell us, yeah, she retired, but
Yes.
she came the first and presented this program and talked about how important it was. And so thank you for, you know, we adopted it, but then the implementation is so important. But the question is, these students are counted as ELL. We track this, right? The state
Yes.
tracks this, but this also contributes to our overall
Yes.
increase, right? So when these students succeed, it helps the whole school, the whole district, you know, everything goes up, right?
Yes.
So what important work, and to see 2,000 students who, some of them whom come in with just bare minimum English and have, you know, to have this kind of success, this is fantastic.
And that's why it's so important that they get immersed in the language, so then they can get the, you know, the skills that they need to be successful on grade level work. So that was very important.
Quick question.
Okay, so-
Are those numbers affected at all or skewed at all because of having less number of students that don't speak English to start with?
No, I think that when we look at the data overall, when we were, like Ms. Campbell said, we really took a effort to make sure that Imagine Learning was being utilized and tracked. We tracked the usage, we actually tracked the number of minutes, and we, you know, we provide support if they're not actually utilizing the resource, because we spend a lot of money on this resource. So it's very few students compared that we've lost compared to, you know, how we've improved.
Wanted to see that it might be helpful to know, like, how many students are in that first column, how many students were in the second column, how many students are in the third column,
Okay.
because if it's pretty consistent, that would be able to.
And we'll have that information,
you.
like I said, the full set come July. We'll have those schools that hopefully will get off the federal index list, and we'll have that data for you in July as well.
Awesome.
Our last slide is really focusing on 3 through 8 fast math, ELC, algebra, and geometry. This slide shows the number of ELL students achieving level 3 increased from 14% in 2023 to 23%, which is a 9% point gain. And we saw a substantial increase to 32% in 2025, which is a 9 percentage point gain over last year, and 18 percentage point increase overall compared over the last 2 years. So we're steadily making progress. We're not done yet. We really want to thank our teachers. This would not happen if the teachers, like I said, they're boots on the ground, as well as our administrators, and then as well as our team working, all of our teams working together to make sure it's not just students with disabilities and ELL over here. It's a concerted effort to make sure that what's happening in the general ed setting is what we want as far as instructional strategies, and we working collaboratively together. So I really wanted to share this information. We do have it by school if you want that data, and I can provide that for you as well, along with Ms. Harris. Any questions?
Anybody else?
No, thank you. Thank you so much. God, well, no, I can't. Just
Real quickly, to all you guys, and it all starts with you, Dr. Rendell. I mean, if I think you make a mistake, I'll point it out, but this is phenomenal as far as, and this starts with you and the team you've assembled, your cabinet, and then the team you guys have assembled. I mean, to make these gains and to see what's happened in 2 years is pretty phenomenal. So just can't give everybody a big enough shout out. And the best thing that I think, just from being an old coach, is what I detect just from your comments and in conversations with you guys is that you're not resting on your laurels. It's always about, you know, evaluating what you've already implemented, trying to figure out how you can tweak it to make it better, and then going back at it to keep getting better. And that's what why I think this is going to be just the tip of the iceberg. So thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Dr. Rendell, what subject areas did we improve in?
All right, so I actually have a whole list of highlights that I want to make sure we cover, because of all the data that we measure, or all the KPIs, or all the things that we look at, this is the most important. This is student achievement. It says school on the door. This is our job. And we've only spent about 30 minutes on this. And this is the result of hundreds and thousands of hours of work by teachers and students. And all the things that we have put in place over the last several years are showing a positive return on investment. So the classroom walkthroughs, the data comms that seemed like tough work, and for some people a little resistant, has proven to be very beneficial. I mean, these are really phenomenal results. And they're raw results right now, and when the state matches the students, from October to February FTE, typically we see an increase. Not much, but a slight increase. So these should get better when the state releases the official numbers. But so last year when I was going out in the community and presenting about our school district and talking about how great we are and the things that we are doing that are great, I was able to say in 20 of 21 tested subjects or grades, we either maintained or improved last year, the previous year. And again, this year it's 20 of 21. And this year it's not 20 of 21 have either maintained or improved. 20 of 21 have all improved. The only grade level tested that we didn't improve was 7th grade math. And we knew that was going to go down because we were taking the 7th graders who were in MJ Advanced and have them take the 8th grade test. So we knew we were going to go down in 7th grade math. The increase in 8th grade math was greater than the loss in 7th grade math. So kudos to all the teachers in 7th and 8th grade who worked really hard with those kids, but kudos to all the teachers in all grade levels. The primary grade, K1 and 2, data is super impressive. Lots of big growth there. You may remember, it seems like 2 years ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, when we crafted this literacy plan, and it started in the early grades. And we knew we weren't going to see the results for a couple of years. So hats off to the staff for believing in investing in the primary grades because we're starting to see the results of that. The third grade increase of 6% rather, in ELA. That's incredible. I mean, the third grade test is very difficult, as Mrs. Campbell mentioned. In fact, the ELA assessment in all grade levels is very difficult, especially the 10th grade exit exam. And again, in 10th grade, we increased. And in 10th grade, we increased last year. So we're actually going to, they don't know this, but we're going to go to a 3-year look back because we had those increases last year from the 3 years ago. And I want to see the trajectory over the 3-year period. But so again, 20 out of 21 tested grades or subjects, we improved. And the only one we didn't is the one we knew we were going to decline in. ELA, a third grade increase of 6% is really, really strong. That's great. That's better than the state improvement. It's a result of the literacy plan, but also, as Mrs. Harris mentioned, we used millage money to hire a third grade interventionist for every school that wasn't a grade, every elementary school that wasn't an A, right? And that direct investment paid off. So the additional funds being provided by the voters, we put to good use. And then took some additional funds and helped in 1 and 2 for other schools. So that we'll see that dividend, the following year. Every ELA grade improved from between 2% and 6% in proficiency, every grade level. And then the data that Mrs. Dampierre showed, think about the fact that over a 3-year period, students with disabilities proficiency grew by 10%, but then ELLs by 18%. So good work, lots of good programs being put in ELA. And then math, again, all but one grade level increased, the one we knew wouldn't, and it all increased from either 1% or 6%. There were several grade bands that was 6% increase in math. Lots of good work, and then Mr. Trent is right to point out algebra. Algebra is a graduation requirement as well. 6% increase in algebra. It's a very tough exam, and 6% increase is great. And then again, Mrs. Dampierre's, data, students with disabilities in math over a 3-year period, a 9% increase, but ELLs, our students that are facing a new language, a new culture, a new way of doing things, again, an 18% increase over 3 years. So in ELA and math, 18%. So a lot of targeted resources put in the right place, yielding a lot of great results. Science increase in all 3, 5th grade, 8th grade, and biology, a 4% increase in all 3. The 5th grade probably impacted by the STEM teachers, again, paid for by the millage. So again, we're using those resources in a positive way, impacting student achievement. And then U.S. history and civics up 3 and 4%. So increases in every grade level and every test except 7th grade math when we knew we were going to do that. And so I just can't thank the teachers enough for their hard work in the classroom, the administrators for following through with the plans, the district teams for going out and supporting. It was a culture shift, halfway through the year when we said the literacy coaches, we want you to get in the classroom and work with students directly. We weren't where we thought we should be, and so that work probably helped us get to where we got. So just a tremendous effort by a lot of people, and we've only taken 45 minutes or so to talk about it. And hopefully when the state matches the data and everything, the results are this good or better, and we can celebrate even more A and B schools. So really,
Mr. Chair?
kudos.
Yes, sir.
Are you planning on, or if you're not, just hopefully you'll share this data with the teachers so they realize, they can see the product of their work? And
Yeah, typically we don't do that. It's every school does it. When they come back in August, they'll celebrate. They have a lot to celebrate. There's, and we'll do a district-wide state of the schools and stuff, and but
I know it's shocking, but they probably won't be watching this
no, I'm
show.
probably not watching today. In fact, if they are, they need to be doing something else. Yeah, they get to see the data right away, and so they've probably been celebrating. A lot of them have been celebrating because it's good work. I mean, they have done a tremendous amount of positive work, and we should thank them for all these great numbers. So really good stuff. And, if anything from today, this is the presentation to remember. This is the most important stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Dr. Rendell, do you know when is it the first week or the second week of July where
I check it every day, just FYI.
So Mr. Susan's question was, when do we anticipate the grades to be released? By statute, they are supposed to release the grades by June 30th. They have not met that deadline for the last 3 or 4 years, usually in the first week or second week of July.
Maybe
So-
this year.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next presentation's presented by Mr. Wilson, Chief of Operations, and Sean Hines, Director of Procurement.
I can't wait for our school grades to come out like I'm super stoked.
And just as a follow-up, as they're preparing the slide presentation, this presentation is actually a follow-up to some work we presented earlier, some suggested policy revisions in the area of procurement, and the board wasn't really ready, and we hadn't really briefed you on some of those suggested policy revisions. So this is something we had on the agenda at a previous meeting. We pulled it so we could do a presentation to talk to you about the rationale for some of the recommended changes to these policies. So Mr. Wilson and Mr. Hines are going to walk us through that.
All right, good morning.
Hello.
Board Chair Susan, board members, Dr. Rendell. Thank you for your time this morning. We are here to present the proposed updates and revisions to Policy 6330. As Dr. Rendell mentioned, the last time this policy was brought to your attention, there were some concerns, and hopefully we can get those concerns cleared up during this presentation. To guide us through the specifics of the updates, I'm joined by Sean Hines, the Director of Procurement and Distribution, and Sean is here to walk us through the rationale behind some of the proposed changes and revisions, and most importantly, to answer any questions that you may have in regards to Policy 6330. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Good morning, board members. So the procurement policy overview, the procurement policy provides the framework for compliance and accountability of the public funds. Procurement is responsible to ensure the compliance of the procurement rules and protect the integrity of the process. We want to promote ethical standards and transparency along the entire process. The procurement policy governs how we purchase using public funds, but it's important to note that budget allocation is separate authority from procurement authority. So just a quick overview of the agenda. just going to speak about the signature authority and quote thresholds, clarifications about the changes to the policy, agreement review, signature authority, and amendments and change orders, and then causes for debarment. So first up, there will be no changes to the, thank you. There will be no changes to the signature authority or quote thresholds. The board approval threshold will remain at $50,000 and above, and the quote thresholds will remain $5,000 and $15,000. So just a few clarifications. First one is just to clarify that the FAC stands for Florida Administrative Code, which clarifying that acronym. Our second change is to clarify that we work with the entire Office of Legal Services, not just the board attorney. And that's just to ensure that the entire legal services has the opportunity to speak with vendors during that cone of silence when we need them to, particularly during a protest period. And then the final clarification, just to note that directors and principals have the authority to approve non-monetary contracts, just when we execute a contract at $0 value and there's no cost to the district. Yeah.
Can you give us an example? I know we have some, like with our agreements with the cities and stuff, but can you give us an example of a non-monetary agreement that the principal and director level would be approving?
Right, yeah. So we have several contracts that we execute for volunteer work. For example, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts of America. We do a lot of free services with software. So we'll execute a data protection agreement, but there's no cost to the district. It's a free service that's provided to the schools. And like you mentioned, we also execute free contracts with the city, MOUs for services, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Just, do the principals have access to a legal opinion, that any of our staff, the district staff, as far as being able to evaluate a contract, just to make sure, even if it's non-monetary, that it's
So
not putting them in a disadvantage?
The principals don't have the authority to sign the contract until procurement has reviewed. And during that procurement review, we will engage legal services to ensure that it is up to snuff.
Awesome, thank you.
So the changes to this paragraph is just to clarify the process of the agreement review. It expands the review to include non-monetary agreements and those with no district expenditure, ensuring consistent oversight of all contractual relationships. It also clarifies procurement services' role in coordinating review with legal, risk management, and other departments to ensure compliance. The goal for this change is to strengthen our internal controls.
I have a question. I'm going to try my best to get it out. Will this apply to contracts that were in place prior to the policy being revised? So like when we have the situation with the logos that were being used and things like that, will you see those contracts now and run them through the same process?
Yes, they should all be running through the same process, any of these contracts that are executed.
So what will procurement's process be as far as tracking down contracts that are already in existence that maybe didn't go through procurement or legal services that were signed prior to the change? You know what I mean?
So this change it hasn't changed the approval process. The contracts that were signed were, I guess I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe from a procurement side, it might be wise of us to reach out to each one of the school sites to make sure that we have a good firm grip on the contracts that are already in place with that school site that might have been signed prior to it going through this process. I like this process a lot more, so I'm very happy with this outcome. I just have concerns about things that might have happened before this was in place. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the legalities of if a contract was executed and was a 3-year contract, then it would still be in effect after the change is in place, unless we move to terminate or renew and update the contract.
Okay.
So if a contract for no money was signed by someone at the school, and they didn't go through procurement, it would still be there.
From a district standpoint, though, it might be wise to look at doing that, just because there is some exposure to liability there. If it's not gone through risk management or legal or
Right,
any
yeah.
of that, we could potentially be exposing ourselves to
And
things that.
we run into that all the time.
Yeah,
where
okay.
somebody
So-
signed an agreement without going through, those other channels or the proper channels, and
Well, that would just
we-
be my
we-
ask to protect the,
we clean
to
it up.
protect the entity. Yeah, thank you.
So the next change is an adjustment to the signature, the physical signature on the contracts. This change is to change the physical signature from the board chair to the director of procurement and distribution services once it's been approved at the official board meeting. It maintains full board authority, but it removes the administrative execution portion of the contract.
Yep, all these right here.
All those right there.
Yes.
Yep.
So this change is to the amendments and change order section. It is a new addition to allow the superintendent or designee to authorize the approval of contract amendments or change orders which are non-monetary or have a cumulative amount of 20% or $50,000, whichever is less. Procurement would see a significant decrease in agenda items that are brought to the board. 54% of amendments are non-monetary, while 22% fall below the proposed threshold. Most of our non-monetary amendments are usually bid assignments, vendor changes, or acquisitions, and non-material scope adjustments, or the addition of required statutory language, which have no material effect on the scope of services.
So an example would be, we've had a few of these in the last year, the company changes their name, or they're acquired by another company, and you have to bring the contract back to us
Yes.
for approval, but nothing changed except for the name of the company.
Correct.
On our
Usually,
part.
the team that works with us has not changed, it's just that name that has changed.
So the difference will be, rather than going through the board meeting again, the superintendent can do that at his
Correct.
level. Okay.
And finally, this change is to add a new violation under the authority to debar and suspend, sorry. Currently, there are 12 violations listed under causes for debarment. There is also a discretionary clause allowing debarment when there is credible acts that seriously affect a vendor's ability to contract with the school district. So this addition adds, just to clarify, the board's authority to take action when a vendor has a verbal or physical abuse record against district employees under that contract.
Can I ask a question about this? Just for procedurally understanding how this will work. So say that the board becomes aware, or a member becomes aware of some vendor that's defaming the district, and what would the process look like? Would that board member need to bring this contract into question at a board meeting, or would we go directly to procurement or the superintendent? What would be the proper process for saying, hey, we have an issue, there's a vendor that's doing something they shouldn't be doing?
So I have to be honest, we've never had to debar a vendor.
Okay,
So that process would, I believe, would just start with procurement, determine what the issue is. Can it be solved? Is it a contractual issue or a non-contractual issue that is causing effect to the district? And then we would review with legal services to determine what the outcome would be
Okay.
based on the facts.
okay. Thank you.
I don't know if you had anything else. I wanted to go back to a previous slide,
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
done.
I am done.
I appreciate the signature authority, which was on the third or fourth slide. I appreciate that when this came the first time, I know I had a problem with raising the levels to as high as they were, and after talking to a bunch of my school board buddies from around the state, there are several districts that have, twice as much. They had like 100,000. But then I know Dr. Rendell pointed out that Orange, which is quite a bit larger than us, actually keeps the $50,000 level. I'm fine with this, but what I did want to ask was, out of these levels, the superintendent level, the cabinet level, or the principal director level, where seems to be the biggest holdup? Because me personally, and I think I said this at the previous meeting, I would not, just me, one board member, would not have a problem with raising the principal director level up to 10,000 to kind of catch some of those things that we mentioned, prom,
Yeah.
at some of our large schools, or if they bring in something for a special event, it can frequently go over at a large school especially. But if we're talking about, that's just like less than a dozen contracts a year. But if there's one of these that we could bump up a little bit to speed the process through without losing what we feel like would be significant accountability or authority, what would you say out of those levels? I mean, is just raising the principal level up, would that be beneficial to the process? And I've talked a little bit about this with Dr. Rendell, but just wondered what you guys think about small changes like that.
It would have a small impact on the timeline, but it wouldn't have a significant impact. Although there are contracts that we take to the cabinet members, generally, once a contract is ready for signature, a cabinet member is not delaying on that signature.
Okay.
So it would be a small impact to the overall percentage of execution.
Okay.
So I appreciate the question because I actually think it would be good if we could raise the principal director's authority higher than 5,000, but also the quote threshold higher than 5,000. If we want to do anything that costs $5,001, we need several quotes. And a lot of times there's only one or two businesses that do that type of work. And so we have to search for other businesses that do that type of work. It delays the process. Typically something that's a school is pursuing or even the district's pursuing that's under $10,000 is something we need done fairly quickly.
Right.
And the $5,000 threshold kind of keeps us from moving fairly quickly on stuff. And then we have to get procurement involved, say, can you find another vendor that does this type of work? We need another quote. Or can you go find a piggyback contract, or something like that. So appreciate the question because, raising that because there's not too much that doesn't cost more than $5,000 now.
Right.
Like if you were going to do fireworks at graduation,
Yeah.
I always said to the fireworks people, you got to keep it below 5,000 because I have to go get all these different quotes if you're going to go above 5,000. And that's 6,000 usually for
Right.
fireworks. So it's not a lot of money, but it would free up, make things happen a lot faster.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the quote threshold is a bigger problem than even the approval process.
I think so, yes.
That makes sense. And what we're saying by policy, that if it's 5 to 15,000, you have to have at least 2,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I don't know how the rest of you board feel, but we are at the point now where we can, they haven't even brought it to us for the first.
Correct, it's just
this time.
discussion.
So I am willing to raise this 5,000 to 10,000 for the quote threshold. And the principal director, I thank you for sharing that because I know most of the people who are doing the approvals, like a lot of them fall under Mr. Raymer for things that schools need to do. And I'm sure he's just as quick as he possibly can be. But this quote threshold, I'm trying to, I don't want to loosen the reins too much, but also I'm trying to appreciate that when you brought those originally to us, you were trying to make the process more efficient and not put all these roadblocks. So I don't know, board, but I think it would be good for us to raise this quote threshold up to $10,000.
So what, like 10 to 25,000 ask for additional quote and then 25?
Would you
or what?
recommend raising the upper level too, or just that bottom level?
I'm just thinking of like the Kingston, I'm thinking of the common things that we see
Oh, yeah.
on those reports, and it usually has to do with the field trip or busing, and those a lot of times are 12,000.
Very expensive.
or They're like right over that 10.
Yeah, I think you could go 10 to 20 and then 20 to 50 is 3.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Would that be helpful?
Yes, it would be helpful.
I'm
Okay,
in favor of doing that. That makes sense to me too.
so 10, what?
10 to 20. and
10 to 20. And we would need to hear from at least one more
Yeah.
person.
There you go.
10 to 20,
10
and then 20 to 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's for the quote thresholds.
Correct.
And what do you want to do for the principal authority?
I said before, I think that we should give the principal authority. I feel like that, again, back to field trips and prom venues and places like that, increasing that a little bit would help, I think. But I don't know, I'm hearing from you guys that it doesn't sound like it's really hindering, because the cabinet and the directors are signing off on those pretty quickly, so I don't know if it's worth doing that or not.
Sounds like the quote process is the most
Yeah,
complicated.
the quote
The
process sounds like.
quote is
most
the biggest hang-
hindrance.
Yeah.
biggest hang up.
If we change the cabinet from 10,000, the wording from cabinet 5,000 to less than 25,000, would that, and then principal less than 10,000, is that,
Right, you could change the principal director to 10 and cabinet starts at 10.
I would be
If
for
I have a
that.
problem with that, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah,
Mr. Ramber's not even here.
I don't have. a
They're meeting
problem
with
it.
staff right now. They're doing work.
They're doing work, I know.
I'm not sure it's gonna help them all that much, but I'm not opposed to doing it, because it seems like a lot of those, like I said, are running in that like 12,000.
Correct.
It gets like a weird number. It's not an even 5 or 10.
So again, for clarity, cabinet 10,000 and less than 25,000.
Correct.
Principal director less than 10,000.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure we capture that.
All good?
And thank you for bringing this back before us. I think the board was taken back by it, and I appreciate everyone's willingness to work on it. And
Of course.
Well, that's the
Well-
thing, when we had those other thresholds, like superintendent threshold and so on, tripled,
Yeah.
we were in line with a lot of other districts, like, oh, that's what everybody else is doing, but we hadn't had this type of discussion.
Yeah.
And that's not fair to the board, so we should have had this discussion.
Well, thank you.
All that was very helpful to explain, not just for us, but for the public, what changes we might be making and why.
All good?
Yep.
All right, guys,
Thank
thank
you,
you
board
so
members.
much. Next three presentations will be presented by Sue Han, Deputy Superintendent.
All right, so
You want to take a few minutes for her to set up and?
5-minute recess.
Take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. back. We are now on to Ms. Sue Hamm's presentation. Floor is to you, Ms.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Really excited to be here today. The team from Perkins Eastman is back, and just going to give you a very quick update of where we are on our process. And then we're going to spend the bulk of our time this morning demonstrating a really awesome community engagement tool. And we will hopefully go live with that later this week, but just want to give everyone kind of a preview of the capacity of this tool. It will allow some really, really significant and important community engagement around facilities planning. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Davis, Mr. Weiberdink, and Mr. Perlow.
Wow, you passed the test. All right, well, thanks again for having us. We were here about 10 weeks ago. It feels like it was 2 weeks ago, but we've had a really, really great time getting to know the district a little bit more over the last 10 weeks. So we're going to break this into two parts, as Ms. Han mentioned. We're going to do a very, very brief, sort of just a few slides, sort of recapping some of the conversations we've had, which really ultimately led us to the second part, which is this interactive tool, which we're going to be launching for the entire public to dig into. So just to recap, I think we as we started about 10 weeks ago, really the charge was to start thinking about the idea of K through 8 schools and what that might mean for the district and what that might mean for long-term sustainability, enrollment, all the different elements that may come with different grade configurations. Initially, the focus was on 3 different schools, so focusing initially on the feeder patterns related to Johnson Middle School, McNair, and Stone. As we'll go, we'll start to, I think we started to unpack a lot of complexity, a lot of things you all knew, but as we came into the district, there's a lot of unique elements that make some of these conversations fairly complex, which really ultimately led us to the development of that tool as an internal resource initially, then realized, hey, it's actually probably a good public resource.
Very amazing.
So we're excited, really excited to share that with you, but also with the broader public. So I'm going to turn to Dow to walk through some of the preceding slides.
Yeah, this is just a quick overview of really just 10 weeks. Can't believe that was 10 weeks only. So we're at the end. As Patrick was mentioning, we will provide, or Devin will do a show and tell of the tool. But there were also some engagement insights that we just wanted to go and share with you. When we discussed the K-8 opportunities, there is generally an excitement around it. It's like, and not specifically about the model, but some of the that it could, and that's increased student achievement, which is happening already, which is great to see. But even more, student retention. There's some drop off from an elementary school to middle school. So could you continue the students have them in the K-8 model? There's some operational efficiencies. If there are more students, you can provide more staff support around a larger school. And if there's a K-8 conversion, that there is an opportunity for facility investments as well. However, there are some sensitivities around it. One is that if you convert a K-8 school, there might be a boundary change or potentially a facility closure, which is always a very, very difficult decision to make. There was some sensitivity around age groups, that if you bring too many students of too wide of an age group together, that like the younger kids might feel a little bit uncomfortable like being around the older kids. Retrofitting is expensive and not always easy. And then there was a sensitivity around the timing. Whenever we are doing anything, it needs to be communicated well. It needs to be fair, well in advance communicated and very clear about what the intent is. Generally around the K-8, the schools would be a little bit bigger than what they are now, but it's about 1,200 to 1,500 students. And if we think about an elementary school and a middle school within the K-8 model, 600 students around the middle school students and 750 around the elementary schools. The goal is to increase the utilization to bring that up to around 90%.
Just to sort of elaborate a little bit more on that, the middle school component was a really big part of the conversation with internal leadership. If we get a maximum number of up to 1,500 students, it's really critical that you have a critical mass of middle school students so you can offer that robust programming. That was a big driver in some of the conversations we're having. So it's not just that total number, it's that you're able to offer the programs and the resources, clubs, all the things you want in a full middle school experience. So it's not just hitting that target, it's really making sure that the split makes sense between elementary and middle school. So that was a big part of the conversation, really delivering on that high-quality middle school experience in a K-8 environment.
Yeah, thanks for that. Some additional information that when we are thinking about, can we think about different models around schools, make sure that we think about these following points. School performance, we want to make sure that whenever we're thinking the school is going to have to perform better. So that's kind of like your baseline. It's always comparing to, it's like, is it going to improve our school performance? Think about choice schools. Like, is there an opportunity to provide choice schools within the K-8 model? And then the third one was home education. It's very complex, home education. There is data. It's not, we don't have a full set of information. It's a little difficult to obtain, but it's a big chunk of the students within the district. So think about what the impact would be when we move forward in any way. Then IB flows. There are IBs right now in the district, but could we think about a flow and start at the earlier years, the elementary schools? Are there some schools that could include an IB? And then lastly, exceptional student education, so balance ESC needs in enrollment and facility planning. So think about those components when we are thinking about different school models.
So just a few things as we think about sort of the path forward. We'll map out where we're going, and all the things that Dowa mentioned, you'll start to see them start to make themselves present in the tool from a data perspective. But we also heard there was not a lot of excitement in the more sort of traditional 6 to 8 school model. There was a lot of excitement for K-8s, but not as much excitement for a traditional 6 through 8 model, standalone model. As Dowa mentioned, maybe there's opportunities to think about choice and pairing K-8s with choice in some parts of the area. As Dowa mentioned, programmatic alignment is really critical as we're thinking about this within the feeder pattern, but then also with some of the specialty programs like IB. So are there opportunities to have clear pathways for students all the way up through secondary schools? And then some conversation around, maybe we don't do K-8, maybe we just need to invest in our middle schools and invest in the programs and facilities there, maybe paired with some boundary adjustments to make sure the critical mass of students is there. So, just some things in terms of opportunities to look forward. We also heard, this really could be an opportunity to think about the homeschool students. Are there opportunity to, understand what they may value in a school, and can some programmatic or grade shift alignments bring some of those families and resulting dollars back to the district? We heard a lot about being mindful and thoughtful about capital dollars. So not necessarily spending capital necessarily, being strategic and targeted around capital improvements. So not just don't build your way out of a problem. It's, thinking about policy and program and use capital strategically when needed, but not just a complete overhaul of the district just to spend capital, but being very thoughtful about it. As you'll start to see, when you start to play with the data yourself, some of these different configurations and changes and sort of ideas around program alignment and sort of, grade shifts may have an impact in travel distance. So just as we're going forward, being mindful on some of those operational impacts. We don't want to have a unintended resulting operational costs or experiential costs without being mindful or thinking about it. There may be some travel distance impacts as you're going through some of this, but as you're going through, just being very intentional and very mindful of some of those operational things like transportation as we go through. There's also areas where transportation may improve too. So just in terms of next steps, we're in the process. This is a very, very brief overview because we want to jump into the tool. We're packaging it all up into a more comprehensive report. We are going to launch that public engagement survey tool that Ms. Han and Devin will mention, then Devin will give a very good overview of. But then we're going to continue the work. I think, as I mentioned, we started with the 3 schools, but as we started to unpack everything, it's a very sort of tangled, confusing, complicated set of conditions. So we want to dig deeper and start to understand how do we get feedback from the community on some of the components, continue conversations with you all, with the leadership team, but really start to zero in a little bit on, of the 20, 30 different things we could be looking at, what are the priorities that we want to focus on? So that's sort of going into phase 2. once we get a little cleaner idea of here's where our guardrails are in terms of specifying a path forward on whether it's the 3 schools, other opportunities, then thinking about that broader engagement. So we're going to launch the tool, but no matter what you're doing in terms of portfolio changes or program changes, want to make sure the community is at the heart of those conversations. So that will be a big part of sort of that phase 3 once we zero in a little bit more. But the tool will help us get there, additional conversations with you all, and leadership team will help us sort of zero in a little bit. So that's sort of where we're going from here. But the exciting part, I think, is turning to Devin to give a quick run through.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the tool is really twofold. One is it's sharing information. I think in a very transparent way you can really see what your school is about, what the district is about, and you can explore it. And I know you and we all have a common intent to really share as much information out there so everyone can read it. And then the second part is the survey part where we can we can obtain as much information to hear from everyone that plays around with the tool.
Yeah.
You want me to keep on talking, or are you all good? Perfect.
Good to go. Confirming you can hear me okay through the mic?
We can hear you great.
Excellent. So as Patrick and Dow both introduced, this web tool that our team has been developing over the past 10 weeks has been a great exercise for ourselves to familiarize ourselves with the districts, some of the shifts that we're seeing both in enrollment across the district and was alluded to earlier this morning, the options that families have for choosing the best school communities for themselves and for their families. As we've been continuing our conversations both internally, engaging with you all and other district leadership, we're very excited to now share some of our findings and the tools themselves that led to these findings with the general community as well. This dashboard synthesizes very, very extensive range of some pretty complex district data in a way that we are hoping is a little bit more accessible and easy for individuals to explore at their own pace and on their own terms, as well as providing a platform to share their feedback back with district leadership and our team as we begin to construct our next steps forward. The landing page of this dashboard does provide some of the context setting language that we previewed in our conversation today. It also includes a video tutorial which has a complete walkthrough of all the different functionalities of the dashboard, how the users can access the data and then eventually share their feedback back with the team. We'll walk through some of the core functions today, but this tutorial remains attached to the welcome page of the dashboard, so as users are exploring, they can always stop and return to this page to learn more. So as we enter the dashboard, there are 3 main pages that the users can toggle between, in addition to the tutorial. The first allows the user to preview existing conditions, both at a district-wide level and for any school community of their choosing. A scenario planning page, which allows the user to configure their own customizable what-if scenarios about changes to grade levels, changes to assignment boundaries or programs between schools, and then a share your feedback page, which allows the user to provide some location-agnostic, school-agnostic feedback about their own priorities and facility planning moving forward. On each of the pages, the configuration is relatively similar, that you'll have a data panel on the left, which is highly customizable, which works in tandem with a map on the right side as well. There's a how to use panel on each of the 3 pages, in addition to a link to a video tutorial that's specific to that page, just to clarify what the user can expect to see and what outcomes they can expect to learn from their exploration. For each feature and for each term on the dashboard, we've also added these descriptive tooltips, which just explain in more plain English language for folks who are less familiar with the district or with the tool about the types of concepts that we're hoping to present and explain here. For the purposes of demonstration, and I guess under the theme of exploration, we'll use Discovery Elementary School as our candidate school. The user can search for from this dropdown and choose a school of their choosing. It will automatically zoom in on the map on the right-hand side as well. You can open up the map layers menu to toggle on or off additional information that's either associated with that school or the district as a whole. So when we first opened up, it automatically zooms to the location of Discovery Elementary School, highlighted in green. But you can also toggle on additional information, such as the greater assignment boundary associated with the elementary school, the parcel or the site that the school is actually located on, as well as additional information we'll jump to soon that provides a little bit more rigorous information associated with each school community. On the left side, you'll have a high-level preview of several key statistics related to enrollment and facilities planning for the specific community that the user has selected. So for Discovery Elementary School, we can see the grade served, the specific address, the school grade for the 2025 year, the date that the facility was opened, the age of the site, the year of the last major renovation, and the size of the site as well. Some of the information that we and the user may be most interested in is the enrollment for the 2025-2026 year, how that relates to the factored capacity or the number of student seats that the school was actually designed to hold, and how these two figures, enrollment and capacity, yield a utilization, which is a measure of the number of students currently enrolled versus the number of student seats that the school was designed for. Immediately below, you can see the capture rates for that school by the assignment boundary. So this is saying, okay, for the geography that we have selected on the right side here, what percentage of students who live within that assignment boundary are actually attending that school versus choicing into another district, traditional district school versus enrolling in a district choice school or attending a public charter school. We also do have some limited data on homeschool education, so you can toggle on or off homeschool students in that count to see how the calculations would be changing if you are including homeschool students in the denominator as well. For each school, you can see a bar graph enrollment over time. At Discovery in particular, the enrollment has been pretty stable, both for the past 10 years and a projected enrollment going out to 2030 for the next 5 years as well.
Quick question.
Yes.
Under other traditional school, does that include private school?
No, other traditional schools only includes other public traditional schools associated with
So we,
the district.
because we don't have private school data? Is that-
Correct, we do not have private school data. You can also see the feeder flows, which correlates the assignment boundaries for the selected school with any middle schools, intermediate schools, or high schools that those students will later be zoned to attend. Here for Discovery Elementary School, it's pretty straightforward. Any student who lives within the Discovery Elementary School boundary is also then zoned to attend Central Middle School for the 7th and 8th grade years. At the very bottom of the left-hand page, we also have some summary statistics, demographics, as well as exceptional student education summary, sharing which programs accept or send students to or from the school for each ESE need. The map on the right-hand side also has additional information specific to that school community, such as travel sheds. You can see the network driving distance to or from the selected school location up to 10 miles, and you can toggle this threshold to see how far students may be traveling to access that school. We also have information on the student residential density, anonymized to a neighborhood size area, so there's no student-specific location on the front end or back end of this tool. But toggling this on, you can see a heat map of, generally speaking, for the students who attend Discovery, where are they actually living in the district? How well does that align with the assignment boundary for this school? How well does that align with the travel sheds up to a certain distance for that school, which you can also change to show only students who are zoned to that school, as well as students who are instead attending charter schools and/or home education programs. You can also toggle on some information at a district-wide level, including charter school locations and/or private school locations, varying enrollment by size, and for additional county context, just the geography of the school board districts which you all represent, municipal boundaries as well. Again, all the information that's on this first page is intended to just provide a user with a snapshot of the district and their particular school as it is today. There's a wealth of information here, and any one user could easily spend hours just exploring this one page for each of their school communities. And we do welcome further exploration into the scenario planning page, but we don't want to be prescriptive. If folks are mostly interested in just learning about the current state of their school, this existing condition page allows them to do so. Moving on to the scenario planning tab, this allows the user to learn a little bit more in depth about some of those hypothetical discussions that we presented about potential K-8 reconfigurations or other reconfigurations to different grade bands or school models across the district. Everything that we present as a part of this tutorial is purely for the purposes of demonstration, does not suggest any real-world realities at any of the school communities or any of the priorities that may inform future conversations. So we can go back to Discovery on this page. Oh, we toggled off the elementary school locations. I was like, where's Discovery? And you can now toggle on or off adjacent schools or grades at other adjacent schools to see what would happen to the enrollment and to the capacity at your base selected school if any type of reconfiguration were to occur. So say if I'm interested in seeing what would happen at Discovery Elementary School, if we did proceed with a K-8 model, you can see Central Middle School, which is the middle school that is currently part of the feeder chain for Discovery. You can toggle on or off, and the charts above will automatically update to show how that scenario would play out, again, using the current capacity at Discovery as the baseline for these calculations. If the user wants to fine-tune their scenarios even further, they can toggle on or off selected grade levels as well, which will update not only the enrollment forecasts and the capacity calculations, but we've also retained those demographic charts at the bottom as well, which would change if you selected or deselected another school. If the user is very excited about some configuration that they found, they want to save it either for their own reference later on, they want to share it with their neighbors, with their local communities, or with school leadership, there's a feature which does allow the user to save and share their scenario. With a pop-up, they can customize a scenario title, they can input different recipient emails, put in their additional comments, and both save a PDF for their own records before sending it out using their personal email client to the project team or to any other recipients of their choosing. You can also reset the scenario at any point to start from scratch. The other scenario planning tool that is embedded into the second page is Boundary Sandbox, which allows the user to instead focus their reconfigurations rather on the grade bands or programs, but instead to the assignment boundaries themselves. So again, using Discovery as our base school, once you select as your first boundary, the selection will automatically update on the map, only this time it's very interactive. So if I want to play around with what would happen if I doubled the size of the assignment boundary for Discovery, you can click and drag using the map selection tools to add in an arbitrary additional radius, and it will show you automatically what would happen to the enrollment at that school, both by grade level. You could toggle on even additional grade levels that are not currently served by that school to see how that would change enrollment. You can select or deselect students by the school type that they are currently attending. So whether they are currently attending a charter school or not, you can include those students or exclude them in the calculation. Same goes for choice and homeschool students. You can get a preview of the schools that those students currently are attending or are zoned to attend, as well as the demographics. But one of the more exciting features is at the very bottom, you have a summary of all of your boundary changes across your customized map, up to 5 boundaries. And you can see at the bottom, if we did make this change, the utilization at Discovery would be at 126%. So you can similarly erase or deselect to right size to a smaller boundary, remove those hexes. Similarly, you can add in a second boundary and select another school in the district. And as with the enrollment planning page, you can save and share the scenario using the same pop-up, submitting your comments to yourself, to your neighbors, or to the district and project team. The final page that we want to preview is a more generic project survey. Through Share Your Feedback, we have prepared a brief, it's a 20-minute, mostly multiple choice survey. All questions are optional. Respondents have the ability to include their contact information, but it's totally up to the user if they do want to add their title with their responses as well, to get a sense of what priorities have informed their school choice decisions in the past, what types of improvements or enhancements, either by school model or programmatic decisions, as we've been previously discussed, would help rebalance enrollment and better right-size future facility investments. The survey can be taken either directly in the page itself, or the users can open up the same survey in a new tab and complete it outside of the dashboard as well. That was a pretty quick run-through of all of the functions. Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. So the scenario planning page is very customizable. If the user does not want to start from a base school at all and has a great idea that they want to share the district from scratch, they can draw their own boundary free-form. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a specific school. This is also a tool that the user can use to explore a specific geography within the greater district that isn't necessarily tied to an existing school boundary to get a sense of the folks who currently live within that assignment boundary and the types of school decisions that they're making today. We'll pause there for questions, or if there are any other quick scenarios that you wanted to test or model, I'll be happy to do so at this time.
I'm sure that the one question everyone's going to ask is, where do we find this tool at?
Oh, great question. So it is hosted at facilitiesplanning.brevardschools.org. We've been working with IT within the district to make sure that it's directly accessible from the current district page. And we'll be working this week to formally launch the tool using social media channels to make sure that members of the public know where to access the tool, how to use the tool, which will be open through at least early fall of 2026. So they'll have several months to play.
All right, wonderful. I don't know how we're ever going to not have this tool. Quite frankly, I feel like from a facilities standpoint, we're going to need this tool to make plans moving forward. So I'm very, very excited about it. I expect we will probably be receiving multiple scenarios from people in the community that have recommendations. So thank you for creating it. It's really amazing.
We also just want to say thanks to you all. I mean, the level of sort of openness to transparency is quite frankly refreshing, and you all deserve a lot of credit for that and to be able to launch this. No, but I think it's really fantastic. We work with districts around the country, and there's varying scales of, hey, share this, don't share this. For everyone in the public from day one, this has been a very open conversation, and just want to say thanks to leadership and the board for doing
We
that.
really appreciate you giving this to us after you get done. This is awesome.
All yours.
I do have a quick question. Is it possible, I don't know if that URL is going to be the one that's given out to the public, but can we get a $15 BPS plans URL or something much shorter that would be easy to remember that we could put out to the community? Just that, that one seemed pretty long and
Sure,
extensive.
we can work on that.
Or a link off the homepage.
We'll have it on the homepage and
Yeah, yeah.
we'll.
Something that just makes it easy to get to. That's,
Yeah.
Our goal is to have it on the homepage, like you can click on it from the homepage. We've just been working with technology and GCR, just make sure that it's ready to go and wanted to demonstrate it today, but hopefully by early next week at the latest, we should be live and ready to go.
That's awesome. It's amazing that you guys put that together. Thank you.
Yeah, so I appreciate the conversation that we had, probably been a couple months ago now, where we just, played, and I introduced some more intricacies on the south side, more than you probably wanted to add into the conversation. But this is amazing, and I know that this, like the scenario planning, wasn't necessarily intended for people in the public to solve all our problems. But you know what? We might have someone out there who solves all our problems and saves it and sends it to us and fixes everything. That would be lovely. But whether that is actually going to happen or not, I mean, it gives the public not just opportunity to see it, but to try things out, to make suggestions. I love the fact that we're looking at ESC, we're looking at feeder patterns. That's something that we see every year in documents that your department provides to us. But for people to really understand, no, these kids go to this school and this school and this school, and so it's such a complicated. It's almost as complicated as school board budgets. Not quite, but it's getting close. So this is fantastic. I just overall in the conversation, I'm only here through November, so a lot of this work, the end of the work, is going to be beyond my term. But I just. I have to say, as we look at this conversation, we just need to acknowledge a couple things. One, we have some really old school buildings. And when I go back to, and I'm going to say this because I'm not the only transplant. Most of the people who live in our county are transplants, right? I grew up in a school district in Fort Worth, Texas, where multiple buildings were built during the Depression as government projects to help provide jobs or whatever, and they're still standing to this day, right? My elementary school, my middle school were both built in Depression era, and they're still standing. But it was in Texas, not in a hurricane zone, not with salt water blowing in all the time. Buildings just last longer, right? And building materials. We have some really old schools that I think the public needs to start wrapping their brains around the fact that we're not going to be able to keep every school all the time. We're going to have to rebuild some. We had to do a really painful consolidation this year. Not only do we have really old buildings, we also have changing demographics. And I think when people get in there in this tool, they'll realize we can't just redraw all the lines so that everybody's even Steven, because when you do that, you actually are going to have cross you're going to have one school in another school's boundaries if you do that, because part of our areas of our county are growing and part of them are shrinking because the aging population that's not moving out of their homes, and they have every right to do that, but that means there's no kids in that neighborhood anymore. Whereas we have other areas like in Palm Bay, West Melbourne, Vieira, and some of the other areas that are just growing so fast with families, with school-age children. And so we are going to have to build schools and potentially close schools. Everything that's coming out of my mouth is the opinion of this one board member only. Let me give that disclaimer, all right? But I believe that as we look into the future, closures, it's not just about building K-8s. We're going to have to look at some closures and some consolidations. We're going to have to look at continuing to build new schools because of population explosions in areas where right now there aren't even houses, much less schools. And to have people not have to drive, 15 miles or more to get to their school. It's just going to have to happen. So having this tool is so helpful so we can see what makes sense. And going back to this, when we talk about K-8s, I totally agree. If we're going to just combine schools to build a shiny new K-8, but it's only going to still have 200 middle schoolers in it, you're still not solving the problem that we have, just to be completely honest. And nobody else has to say this, but I'm going to say it, just me, Katie Campbell. It's still not going to solve the problem that we have at McNair, because you have a middle school with 200 students or barely over 200 students. You can't provide the robust programming, fine arts, academic CTE that you can provide at a school that has 600 or more. You just can't, because there's not enough students to fill those classes. And so having a K-8 that is a middle school population of 200-ish and elementary school of 400-ish, it's just not going to solve our problems, no matter what a shiny new building we might put it in. We're still going to have the problem. So I just appreciate this because it's going to help our community be so thoughtful and recognize that you guys and as the district staff and we as the board are being thoughtful in the process. We're not just, we don't like you, we're going to close you down. That's or we're just going to, we like this area better, we're going to build a school. No, we have to do what makes sense, because ultimately it goes back to what we started this workshop with after the policies, which is the academic growth of our students. And if we don't give them opportunities in a building that is safe and healthy to be in, where they can have a critical mass to have excellent programming, they're not going to be able to continue to succeed in the way that we've seen that they already are succeeding. So just to pull it back to academics and our main goal, to me, this tool is to really help the community get on board with that we're trying to figure out what is the next option. And what I walked out of my meeting with you is, we really don't know. We really don't know. You guys aren't coming to us with, we think you should do this. And we're not actually coming to you with, it would really be nice for us to say, will you please solve all our problems? And y'all present to us a big fat plan of do this next year, do this next year. But you're not doing that because you can't. We have to have the public input. We have to have the board's input as the elected representatives. We have to have staff input. So thank you for doing all this. I think it's going to be a really good tool, board, and good luck with all those future endeavors.
What's that to say?
I know. You want to say ditto? No, I would just say this one thing, though. I think that it's worth consideration of the K-8 model and us starting out with a smaller population in the middle school. While that may be true, we tend to lose those students going from elementary to middle. So the overall goal there might be that it starts out small, but we keep them in our schools and they stay through the middle school. So while ideally it won't be that way at the beginning, my hope would be that we retain those students and they don't look for another option because they're at their home school and they love that facility. So, but aside from that, you're 100% accurate. There are a lot of decisions ahead of the board that will be tough decisions, but with the community's input and tools like this, I'm like, I don't ever want to lose this tool, quite frankly. I think this is a lot of fun to be able to go in there and kind of just mess around and look and see, like, what could we do? And then also point our community to it. So when they come to us and say, hey, we have an issue, we're scared our school's going to close, we can say, hey, look, there's a tool that's available for you. Why don't you spend some time there? Because I think what this tool makes people realize is that, A, it's not as easy as just redrawing a boundary, and B, we may not have all the solutions, right? But the community might have some great ideas. So we would love to hear that from them as well. Community input is crucial when it comes to these decisions. And so, I look forward to being able to launch this thing and put it out there everywhere. Thank you. This tool blows my mind. It's amazing. Very, very excited.
Very cool.
Well, I appreciate you guys. one of the things we know that is the strongest component for a lot of these families that we see in bulk that are sticking into K through 8 is what Miss, is it not on? We see is what Miss Wright was mentioning, in that the families who can transport end up going to a charter school because they have multiple families. I heard a statistic one time that our families that are above a certain wage, which would be our families of affluence that would be able to travel and do stuff like that, have a higher amount of children in this county. I don't know why, I don't know what it was, but that would make sense in that they have one kid that's in middle school, one kid that's in high school, or one kid that's in elementary school, and they just want to go to the same place to pick the kids up. And that plays true with a lot of the families that I have. The other thing has to do a little bit with curriculum and a little bit with discipline and stuff like that. But we've pretty much cleaned all that up being an A school district, and we have our discipline strong now. So I feel very confident that your guys' analysis and bringing this to the table gets rid of all of the hidden, you know what I mean? When we tried to do this back in 2017 and 2018, where I tried to redistrict all my schools, because what had happened is a lot of families had left as we moved into redistricting a couple of years before that. They moved to the charters. And I asked them, I said, if we go back to this, would you do this? So they agreed. And but what happened is I ran up on the what ifs, and the what ifs were so outlandish. And I said, that's not even true. If you go knock doors, this and this, but this gets rid of the what ifs. This is hard data. This is facts. This is what we know is true. So I just really wanted to say thank you. I will geek out on this thing for a long time. Like, this is going to be cool. And I just appreciate you guys. You guys are a unique unicorn in our business, in that you come and you guys have been very open, very nice, meetings have all been, you know what I mean? Hey, how can we do this? How can we do that? You developed a personalized tool based on us. You know, hats off to you guys. Great job.
Yeah,
So
happy to do it.
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yeah,
a couple
yeah, yeah.
comments. Okay. We want to share this with the public. We want the public's input. So we're going to make sure it's on the webpage. We're going to do a campaign to get the word out about the tool and how to use it. We do have several schools that are under-enrolled. We have several schools that are very old. Unfortunately, most of the under-enrolled schools are not near an over-enrolled school. So just shifting an attendance boundary doesn't fill a
Right.
school. And we say that, and we know that because we've seen the maps. We've had Karen Black present to us, and we've seen all these things, but the public hasn't. So this tool will allow them to see, you know, if I live in this zone and my school is under-enrolled and I'm thinking it, you know, could possibly be closed or something, let me jump on the tool and see how I can redraw some boundaries and stuff. And they're going to find out there is no easy solution. There are no ways to just shift this attendance boundary over here, and then this school will fill up without draining this other school. You know, there are no easy solutions to many of the situations that we're facing. And K-8 may be an answer for some of the situations. It may not, because, you know, to build a brand new K-8 is the best solution, but that takes time and, you know, a lot of money. And if you don't build the K-8 big enough, then you can't necessarily offer all the programs at the middle school level that you need. So, you know, in the situations, the three scenarios, we're going to continue to explore those, but, you know, that may end up not being the best answer. But this tool, and providing this tool to our public with access for them, as has said by several board members, they may tell us, they may show us a solution that we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
But it will help if we say, you know, there is no solution to this scenario except doing this, you know, closing the school or something like that. People will be able to say, yeah, I looked at the tool and I tried, there's no other solution, you know, and this is what we have to do. So, but we have several months, and we'll get this, you know, to the public to use within a week or two, and then we'll put a big media campaign out to make sure everybody knows that, you know, this tool is available, and we want their input. We want them to get in there and try some scenarios, create some ideas, you know, and then maybe they'll solve some of these issues for us or give us some ideas that we haven't seen. But, and we'll be, you know, obviously diving into the tool and coming up with scenarios as well. But, and the message for all of our public school residents or families is no changes for this coming year. This tool is, you know, for us to explore things down the road, you know, so that nothing's happening this year. In case somebody says, oh, looks like they're going to close some schools. Well, not this year, you know, so.
Well, and I think, Dr. Rendell, if I may, I think this is a good challenge for our district, that we need a heavy marketing campaign, because there are students that we've lost. And You know, I send my kids just like you, Katie. My kids are BPS students. I'm a BPS graduate, and I truly know after looking at all the different schools we have in our county, we have the best product. We just haven't marketed it the way that we need to market it. So the challenge of the district this year is going to be how can we go and capture those ones that we've lost and do a better job at telling our story of what it really is. Because there's so much good that happens inside of these schools every single day. And I do know that we have truly the best educational opportunity that exists within Brevard County. It's right here in our schools. So,
Well, just to reemphasize, though, the tool, we want the public to access it and give us their input.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Ms. Hand, do you have a strategic plan update that you want to give us?
She's got all
Wow.
the things we have.
I can't wait.
If I ever lose my voice again before a board meeting, this sucks. I can't even talk.
Ms. Hand, are you just going to roll through the financial update too, or how do you want to do this?
Yes, I've got it all,
Okay, perfect.
so I'm going to roll through all of it.
All the way to the right. What's that? That's right. I remember.
Those friggin' fish things, those were horrible. I'm pretty sure it was fish food.
Give it.
I think that was fish. It smelled so bad when you opened it. Like,
All right.
okay, so the first topic I'm going to cover today is the Financial Services Strategic Plan. And we're coming up on our July review of the board's strategic plan, and I thought it might be a good opportunity for us in the finance team to kind of take a look at what has been in the strategic plan and maybe kind of retool a little bit. So I appreciate the conversation earlier today with Ms. Harris and Ms. Dampier talking about our student achievement. Like, we have really been achieving incredible results for our students, and I see financial services, facilities, our operational departments, we are the support team for the educational team, and we want to look at ourselves that way as a partner and a collaborator. And so some of the things I'm proposing today are both changing the way we operate in finance in terms of being a partner, and also providing data that is timely and actionable. So we want to join everybody else in the data realm and making sure that we have good data, and that theme will permeate from the first presentation into the second presentation. So our strategic plan components: goals, objectives, key performance indicators, strategies, and metrics. And the important thing is that these are all measurable. And so financial services is part of the operational efficiency goal, and our objective previously is talking about delivering financial management efficiency. And personally, I believe it is more important that we look at outcomes versus efficiency, because we can be efficient but not effective. And so I'm proposing to change our objective to focus on service delivery excellence, which is in keeping with our academic excellence, and to continuously monitor, analyze, and report financial data to allow the board and leadership to make timely adaptation to changes. So the idea is to have good financial data that is timely and current, and that we continually monitor that data and be able to present to the board when we need to make mid-course corrections. So our key performance indicator currently talks about maintaining a financial condition ratio annually of at least 8%. And I feel like I need to kind of back up and just talk about what that actually means. And so the definition of a financial condition ratio, it is kind of like your savings account relative to your salary. So it's basically the money that you have kind of set aside. But it's an indicator of financial stability, and this is one of the things that our rating agencies look at. So they always are asking about our financial condition ratio and what the history of our FCR has been. So it is important to us from that perspective. The actual measurement of the FCR is the assigned and unassigned fund balance in the general fund divided by the general fund revenue. And I'll get into what those things are in just a second. But basically, this is the liquid assets that we have at the district that we could use to potentially pay back debt or something like that if we needed to. So the types of fund balance that we have are from the most non-liquid to the most liquid are non-spendable, that's stuff. Restricted, those are funds that might be in the fund balance, but that are categoricals, grants, or have some restriction on them, typically imposed by state, federal agencies, purchase orders, that type of thing, a legally enforceable contract. Assigned, those are fund balance components that are district-imposed constraints. So these might be something like carry forwards, or I'm trying to think of a good example, and it always slays me. Mr. Thomas, what was the example I gave you yesterday? Do you remember? Because I sure don't.
It's probably a contract.
It's
Schools, like if schools have raised funds
So-
for something, it would go in that?
Right, so schools have raised funds. The other example was, this is in the capital fund, not the general fund, but we had set aside funding for a transportation facility.
Right.
And we're not ready to use that money. So the money is there, it's assigned, we want to use it for this purpose, but it is not under a purchase order. So that's an example of assigned. This is not a big component of our fund balance, but it is used in the calculation of the FCR. And then unassigned is basically our contingency funds. So I also thought it was important to bring in the board policy. This is not talking about the financial condition ratio, but it is talking about a different financial metric. And so I wanted to put this up there just so that the public and we all do not get confused when we're talking about an FCR, because the board policy is not actually using the same metric as an FCR. So the board policy is only talking about the unassigned fund balance. So this will come into play when I talk a little bit more about our financial condition, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had the distinction between what's in the board policy and the FCR. Ultimately, I will probably come back to you at some point to modify this to be more in alignment with our strategic plan, but this is what your current board policy is. So the idea is to update the key performance indicator from the current KPI to a proposal that says by fiscal year end 2030, achieve a financial condition ratio of at least 6%. So right now, we ended fiscal year 25 with an FCR that was initially calculated at 5.2%, but we did make an adjustment based on some reclassification by the Auditor General. And so some funds in the fund balance were moved from assigned to restricted. That impacted our fund balance and our FCR. And so the FCR currently is 3.6%. So if we were to move to 8%, you're looking at about 1% of FCR change equates to about $7 million. So that's a pretty big jump if we're going to go from 3.6 to 8. Now, good idea from a financial stability standpoint. However, that translates to resources that we are not able to then invest in our schools and our students. And you saw from this morning that we have done an incredibly good job of investing our resources wisely. We're making an impact in our schools. And I think we need to really make sure that we are balancing both the financial stability of the district as well as the investment in our students. Like, there's no point in having an enormous savings account if we're not doing good work out in the schools.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to continue to build our financial stability index while also allowing us to do good investments and good work in our schools. And I feel like that's an important point, that we need to really make sure that we're balancing those two objectives. So that is the proposed KPI. So this is our target, basically, over the next 4 to 5 years, is to move in that direction. So the current strategies and metrics in our strategic plan really talk about, again, a financial condition ratio that really is not achievable or wise, in my opinion. And then secondly, talking about working, well, the current strategy is more about the finance department providing guidance to departments on what would be a cost-efficient or a financial sustainability method in their departments. And having operated the facilities department, from my perspective, I think it's more important that the departments initiate this work and that the financial services team really provides the technical support to do that. So I think what I'm proposing in terms of new strategies and metrics will be similar to these things, but with slightly different words. So the new strategy that I'm proposing is to implement a financial dashboard, and this is, we looked at several, Ashley Smith is one of our new directors, and she's really been chasing this down, and she found a really good website in Monroe County, and I'm going to demo that for you in just a second to show you what it looks like. And she is actually pursuing emulating that here in Brevard County so that we can do this here. And sort of like the dashboard that Perkins Eastman just demonstrated, this is kind of the financial version of that. Financial data is awesome. It basically takes the financial data that's in AS 400 and puts it out there so the public can see it, you can see it, we can see it, and we can make timely decisions based on that data. And so she's currently working with Microsoft and our folks in ET to kind of make this happen. So I think that's one strategy that we'd like to implement. Oh, yes, sir.
Just to clarify, I know you mentioned the public, but you kind of just went through that. That's going to be totally open to the public, correct? That's
Absolutely, and I'm going to pull up Monroe's before I'm finished and show you. It'll be on our website. Hit the dashboard and you'll be able to see it.
That's
So
awesome.
absolutely transparent to the public. And then the second one is for the finance department to really be more of a collaborator with our operational departments and to assist them in doing business case analysis. And we have lots of opportunities for business case analysis. Things like after school care, before school care, services that we provide. And as we went through the budget meetings with each of our departments, really found several opportunities where this type of business case analysis would either potentially increase revenue, potentially reduce expenditures, but ultimately these decisions rest with our departments and the board in terms of what is the balance. We don't necessarily want to always operate under the philosophy that we're a business, but we are to some extent, but we're also a community partner. So some of the things that we do are not profitable because we're providing a service to the community. Some of the things we do, we probably should look at whether we are making money or losing money on that particular function. And so we are going to be the partner in doing the analysis using data so that you will be able to make those actionable decisions based on good data. So that's really where we're going with that. So I think in summary, our goal in finance is the same. We support academic performance. We want to be a partner and a collaborator. And so we'll be working with the departments. Hopefully our budget meetings this year were useful for our departments because they could kind of see the perspective on where we're going financially, and we can kind of see what they're trying to do and what are their priorities for operations. So we will be working together to build the FY27 budget. So if you will allow me just a minute, I want to show you the Monroe County dashboard. It won't take too long. So this is the first page of the Monroe County dashboard, and it shows budget to actual for all the different funds. And so if you want to look at the general fund, you can click on that and see the different revenue sources in the general fund, federal, state sources, local sources. You click on their capital fund, see the different revenue sources, and then on the expenditure side, you can do the same thing. You see the salaries. So just a very good kind of overview of the budget. And then if you continue to scroll, this shows the budget and actual expenditures by function. And so if you want to look at K-12, shows the instruction. If you want to look at general administration, health services, So it's really a cool tool, kind of very similar to what we saw from Perkins Eastman, where you can just kind of look through your budget in a variety of detail. This is another screen on their website that shows expenditures by function. This is in the general fund. And so, for example, there's a question about pre-K. Just click on that and see the salaries that are invested in that particular function. Look at food services. So there's a wealth of data, and literally our financial system is set up the same way. We have the same data with the same strings, the same numbers. It's a statewide accounting system. So I believe that we can get here with our data as well. So this shows budgets for each school. So if you want to see what's happening at Coral Shores High School, you can easily click on that school and see what's happening at that school. It shows the expended month-to-date, year-to-date balance. So it's really easy for those of us in finance to monitor the budget. It's easy for the public to see. We'll be able to do our monthly financial statements much more clearly and have much greater depth of information. And then this gives you kind of the cadence of, excuse me, shows you the budget versus actual by fund. So you can see in the general fund what was budgeted, expended year to date, that type of thing. And just, there's just so much data here to explore that I think it will be helpful to all of us. And I also think it will be good for our community to be able to understand both the complexity of the budget and have real-time information. And then this shows the cash and bank accounts, and I believe there's another screen about our investments. So I thought this was a great example that Ashley found when she was looking at different opportunities for dashboards, because the goal was, can we develop a dashboard for our financial data? And she looked at a lot of different places and found this one. And I think this is a great way to show our financial data to the public. So we're going to be working towards that, and hopefully very early in the fall we'll have some start on it that you all will be able to see. So that is the end of the first presentation. And I'll bring this back to...
Mrs. Hand, can I ask them if they have any questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in here if that's okay. So the Auditor General report was the reason for the shift in categorization, which made it our ratio drop from 5.2 to 3.6. Considering that, then does that, the KPI was 8%, and then you're suggesting, get to 6%. Is that because of the categorization? That's like a permanent change, right, from the way we used to do things to the way we have to do things now. So is that it's 1.6, 2%. I mean, it's still going to be a stretch. It's still going to be a climb to get there. But to me, that almost makes up that's almost the whole 2% is just the changes that we're now having to do things differently.
So the most significant change is the current KPI is 8% annually, meaning tomorrow.
Okay.
At least that's what it means to me.
Right.
And then
to keep it there, to get there and keep it there.
The change is really to get there between now and fiscal year end 2030. Because that, all districts are experiencing financial stress for a variety of reasons. And so I don't want our goal in finance to be, overriding the academic investment goals.
Right.
Right. So we don't want to be too focused on the financial piece and not focused enough on the academic piece. So really trying to set up more of a balance. So the Auditor General's reclassification was just kind of a thing that it wasn't anything that was a finding or anything like that. It was just their opinion that it should be over here and not over there. And so That's not really impacting us other than it affected the FCR, and we need to respond to that and
Right.
make sure that we adjust.
I guess my point is my question, from here on out, that's the way we're going to have to do things. So unless we get a new
Yes,
auditor
that
or
is
general's
correct.
opinion that
Yes.
says you can put it
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah, and that was, if I remember right, it was about $11 to $12 million, so it was a pretty significant number that moved, so.
Right.
So
And
yes.
that makes that 8% even harder to achieve.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think that these new, I'm in support of the new strategies. I love the dashboard. I think that's really great. And I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel, so I don't mind at all that we stole the idea from Monroe County. I also, looking at the other strategy about the case analysis, I think that's excellent because we're kind of moving from a model, and by the way, thank you for the discussion that you had with us. I think I got to go first last week, of where finance comes in and tells departments, here's how you should do your job. Whereas, an example this year, the superintendent gave every department the directive of find 7% of cuts. And it's up to you. That could be people, that could be subscriptions, that could be whatever. This is your task. It's not really, in the same way, it's not really finance's job to come in and say, this is how you're going to do those cuts. But if they can be a partner to help you find opportunities, I think that's an excellent choice. So I know I support both these new strategies and the elimination of the other strategies.
Just to let you know, I'm in support of your plan, and I think you've done a phenomenal job. You're definitely the right person at the right time for this job. So kudos to Dr. Rendell again, because I think you're going to get us on track. I love the idea that we're going to keep a balance between academic performance and our financial goals as well. Obviously, that's always a challenge, and the dashboard's awesome. I mean, it may not look as cool as the other one, but it's definitely going to be a great
It's
tool
not
for us.
interactive, you can't move the money around.
That's a good one. You want me to say something? No, we talked yesterday. This is great. I mean, this is, putting it out there. And I think it's same thing as can't move stuff around. But it's the same idea as, when, people have these ideas or when we do things and then when they can see it for themselves here, it's pretty self-explanatory, not a lot of movement, so.
All right, I'll go next. I thank you, Sue. You are the right person for this job right now, and this is not necessarily an easy one to be stepping into in this particular moment in time that we're in. But I know that you're going to be the right person to lead. I think one of the challenges our district faces is that majority of our budget is spent on people, right? 75 to 80%, I think is what you told me yesterday. So when we look at, hey, we need to come up with $7 million, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot of people that you're going to potentially lose. It's a balancing act because while obviously the data, the achievement of the students, like that's priority number one, are we serving students? But we also can't overspend to do that. So we have to figure out how we can do those two things in accordance. One of the concerns I have is, we're out of compliance with our policy right now as far as general fund and the unassigned. So I don't know what repercussions we have from that, or if the board needs to look at adopting that policy or adjusting that policy. I don't necessarily want to be out of compliance with what the policy that the board has set forth here is, or do we need to figure out how to get to that 3.5%?
So we're going to be working on that for the fiscal year end 26 close.
Okay,
Right, the idea is to close the year above 3.5.
Okay.
So we'll be in compliance.
okay, all right. Or if it's not achievable, then that's something that we would need to hear from, as a board's perspective, do we need to change that policy? Because it's not achievable for the time that we're in right now. Yeah, I look forward to, this conversation continuing. We can't spend more than we bring in. I know we don't want to look at it as a business. It's not a business, but we have to be mindful of the resources that we have and not overspend them. So you are the right person for this job for this time, and I'm so thankful that you stepped up to be there. So I appreciate all the work that you and your team is doing. And to Ms. Smith, if you're listening, we cannot wait to see that dashboard go live. So that's going to be very, very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, can I comment on something she said really quick? So the policy language is in here. It says the board is committed to maintaining
I know,
a fund balance, which, that is a commitment. But I would highly recommend that because there are a lot of districts that have it much higher than 3.5. And considering the state requirement is 3, I wouldn't want to make any changes because that 3.5 is already dangerously close to the 3. And we've already seen a couple of cases this year of school districts who got taken over because they dropped below the state the state requirement. And maybe the same thing happened to them. Maybe the auditor general came in and said, nope, you got to move this from here to there, and that's what
Right.
caused it. I think it is actually what happened.
Right. And so what's interesting about your policy is it's not the FCR. Your policy is just the unassigned fund balance. And the state's regulation, as well as just general financial metrics, is the FCR is the unassigned plus the assigned. So that's where I feel like we should get in alignment, so we're all talking about the same thing at the same time when we're talking about.
Yeah,
the
so that could be a
financial metrics.
possible policy change moving
Okay.
forward.
Yeah, but we want to stay away from that. We want to pull the line far back from what the state requirement is,
Yes, most definitely.
Correct.
far enough
Agreed.
back, let's just say that.
We're all good? All right, I appreciate
One
you.
more presentation.
I know, but I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, so this one is a little bit more of a financial update, and so just want to go through this real quickly. We ended fiscal year '25, so this is kind of setting the stage for moving forward. This was the final determination of our fund balance at 50.3 million. The adjustment that was recommended by the Auditor General has been made, so you see the assigned fund balance is 4 million, unassigned is about 22. So in FY '26, when the budget was adopted, which was before the fiscal year '25 closed, we had the a $57 million fund balance in the adopted budget. And then as time went on, we closed fiscal '25 fairly recently and ended up with the fund balance of 50.3. And so that adjustment was made at a May board meeting in the April financials. So we reported a reduction in the budgeted fund balance from 57 to 50.3. And so that's kind of our starting point for fiscal year '26. So again, we talked about the board's policy and just wanted to highlight for you that our general fund trajectory has been going down. So we've been investing in our schools, and we need to be cognizant of that. So our close of FY '25, we had about 22 million in unassigned fund balance, but we also included about a $21 million capital transfer to cover eligible salaries. If you recall, the legislature had amended the statute regarding capital expenditures about 3 years ago that opened up the capability for districts to use capital to pay for bus driver salaries, educational technology folks that support the things that you buy with capital. So we were able to make a transfer, and that shored up our fund balance for fiscal '25. So it's late in the year in fiscal '26, and so our trends have been a little concerning. When we started the year, our budget for revenues was a bit optimistic, and our budget for expenditures may have been somewhat understated. And as Mrs. Wright pointed out, our costs are 75 to 80% salaries. So it's not easy to make any sort of mid-course correction in May.
Yeah.
So we felt that we wanted to leave the stability of the schools and, in testing season and all that. So everybody was carry on as you need to, and we'll figure out how to finish the fiscal year doing with our fund balance where it needs to be. So we're going to be talking about this continuously with the board and our departments. And I have to say, the folks on cabinet, they've been getting briefed on all of this, and they have been really diligent about trying to reduce their fiscal year '26 expenditures where they can. They've been great partners all around. So everybody is really working on this to try to make sure that we end fiscal year '26 in a positive place. So some of the mitigation strategies that we've been working on, the big one is really doing another capital transfer this year, and I'll talk about that in a little bit of detail. But really policing our salaries and where folks are budgeted. So if you're budgeted in a grant, making sure that you are paid out of that grant and not out of the general fund, and checking, are your benefits paid there, are your supplements paid there, and just really kind of looking at our position control and making sure that if you're budgeted over here in this bucket, that you're paid over here in this bucket. Looking at opportunities, if we have any, to transfer salary expenditures to other sources of funds that we have. So really trying to move things out of the general fund where we can. We've also done a very thorough position control analysis. So in fiscal year 27, when we put the proposed budget forward, we will have a very high level of confidence that we are budgeting the number of people that we have and that they are in the appropriate fund. So we've been spending a lot of time on that, and that was kind of the bulk of our conversation with our departments, is just going over position control and making sure we had the right people in the right place. We have a lot of split-funded employees, like you might be funded part of Title II and Title IV, or part of capital and part of general fund. So we wanted to make sure that that was all correctly accounted for so that we budget appropriately. So that was a big effort. As I mentioned, we expect to do a pretty big transfer from capital. We're looking at any restricted fund source and making sure that we are using that restricted fund source within the guardrails of that restriction, and that we don't have something hanging out in the general fund that really could be attributed to the restricted fund source. So moving things where we can. We've done a really good scrub of all of our multi-year contracts, and I thank our friends in ET because they've done a super job with this. They're the ones that really have 2, 3, 4-year contracts, and we have worked with our vendors and are able to make sure that we are spending 26 money on 26 expenditures, and then we're issuing FY27 purchase orders using FY27 money. So those expenditures aren't going to hit our 26 budget. So that's been super helpful. Mr. Wilson has worked with us to reduce the bus order, so that's going to free up some money in capital. So everybody's really coming to the table to try to make sure that we end fiscal year 26 in a good place. So talking about capital transfer, you will see this in the next budget amendment that comes to you for May, and we've been able to move about $10 million from capital over to the general fund to support eligible salaries. This initial group, there are different types of projects here, but there are some that we've migrated to sales surtax. So our classroom renewal projects are being done with sales surtax. Our stadium bleacher projects, they're under design, so they weren't really ready to construct anyway. There is some funding in the sales surtax plan for at least one of those, and we probably can pick up the second one in sales surtax. Projects like portable relocation, we had put $1 million in the capital plan thinking that we might need to move portables around this summer, and we did not. So that's just money that we don't need to spend. Some of the other ones, we have finished the projects that we were planning to do with either prior year money or some of what was in the capital plan, and these are resources that are left over. So these are funds that we can move, and we are not impacting any current projects. Potentially will impact next year's projects, but not impacting anything that we have under construction right now or that's ready to build. So the next round, we're going to do a few things. As I mentioned, Educational Technology has already done a lot of work with their contracts, so we're expecting about another $7 million that we can reduce in 26. But that is going to increase the level of commitments that we have in fiscal year 27 on the capital plan. Transportation reduced their bus order. In facility renewal, I have capital money budgeted that I probably will not need to use in facilities. So it's kind of the funds that we make sure we have enough money for things like if we have a hurricane or those types of emergencies that come up that I don't have another funding source for, but I can probably chip in a little bit to the pot from facilities. And then looking at balances in current funds, interest on our capital funds, our property insurance. Mr. Dufresne and his team have done a good job negotiating lower property insurance rates, so that'll come off the top. And in facilities, we'll be looking for unused balances in projects. So doing another scrub for round 2, expecting another $10 to $15 million potentially to transfer from capital over into the general fund, but we'll finalize that a little bit later. So in 27, when we talk about our capital plan, so when you see that with the budget proposal, it'll be all of our commitments that we have, debt service, ET contracts, property insurance, the things that we must do, maintenance salaries, and any other eligible salaries. And so the rest is going to be pretty small, so there won't be a big project list. There will be probably a designation of projects for facilities, transportation, and technology, something like that, and then we'll build the plan later depending on how much is available. But one point I wanted to be clear on is that we need to manage our cash flow carefully, because if we are migrating salary expenses into capital, we don't actually receive 27 capital revenue until like December of 26. And so we may need to shore that up with a tax anticipation note, kind of a standard practice with school districts, because of the cadence of capital revenue doesn't actually start until well into the fiscal year. But our financial advisor is looking at that for us, and we'll more to come if we need to. The future of capital, I just wanted to take a long-term look as well. If we are looking to budget $25 to $35 million to cover eligible salaries, that's going to reduce our opportunities for capital projects, and I just want to be upfront about that. But in thinking long-term and strategically, potentially we can offset some of those things, right? So obviously, if we reduce our general fund expenditures, that helps, right? But we also potentially will be able to use some educational impact fees. Those funds have been used for primarily Bayside High School classroom addition and the separate day school. Separate day school is fully funded. Bayside is probably a quarter meaning a quarter of the year away from being funded. So potentially we can put a few $1 million from impact fees into paying for debt on previously constructed projects that were capacity projects that are eligible. That will free up a little capital money. So, I think there's some things we can do to offset the capital impact going forward. But it's really just, kind of looking at how we can manage our capital resources to be as effective as possible. And then our debt retirement, our payment in 2032 is the last full payment. So in 2033, we get about a $20 million reduction, and then in 2036, that is our last payment on our current debt. And so that's going to give us some more capital resources too going forward. And then just to let you know, I am taking another look at the sales tax renewal plan and just making sure that we've got our mission critical projects covered. So that will.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Just because I know we discussed it before, but the impact fees, we talked about looking at an impact fee study, and I think that had to go through the county commission, correct?
So the change in the rates has to go through the county commission. The county staff kind of said, if you guys want a new rate, go ahead and get a study done. So we can do that independently, and then they have to enact the rate.
Okay. And I just don't know, is that worth us looking at?
Mrs. Wright, frankly, I have debated the merits of doing that.
I know.
I think our rates are very low. They're probably a third of what they should be.
Then we should do it.
Well, yes, but there's some state law around how much you can increase your rates, and then it also impacts the affordability of development. So there's some offsetting factors, and so I've been kind of on the fence about whether we should do that or not. But if the board would like us to move forward, or if you'd like me to do a longer analysis of that, I'm happy to do that, because we can increase our rates. But the county commission has to adopt them.
Right.
So
If
we
we
can't
order
do-
the study, it doesn't mean we have to move forward with it. It will just show the disparity. Correct?
Yeah, and one of the things that Perkins Eastman can do, that's within the scope of the planning world, so fully intended to use them for that purpose if the board wanted to move forward with that.
That's all. I mean,
So
we
if you all want
look
to
at
think
it.
about that and let me know, we can proceed
I think
with
it's
that
worth
anytime.
exploring. I don't know what it's going to cost the district to explore it, but it's probably worth at least looking at if you're saying we're.
They're typically pretty expensive, but we have pretty good data too. So a lot of the work that goes into the impact fee study is looking at our facilities costs and things like that, and we have good data on that. So I can talk to them and get a kind of a
Just an
draft
idea of what it
proposal,
is.
an
Yeah,
idea.
we can get a number.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So for 27, our budget presentation, in July, you have your first budget hearing, and we will basically load the department's budgets as they have been requested, as we haven't looked at the revenue side yet, so that's something that will be ongoing for the next few weeks. And then we're planning to do a pretty sizable capital transfer. Couple of significant changes in the budget. We do have some textbook expenses coming up in 27, I believe, social studies. Is that correct, Ms. Harris? Math, I'm sorry. And fuel has gone up. And then our school clinic staffing through the Florida Department of Health, we have a contract with them that's about $6 million a year. They have had and applied some other resources to that contract, so we haven't expended that much in the past, but we need to fully budget for that expense in fiscal year 27. But I would say, and what I've been telling our departments, is to expect some reduction between what we see in July and what you all approve ultimately in September. Again, mentioned focus on position control, and we also want to take a look at that after six-day count and see where we are with PAR, because that will have an impact on the budget as well. Some longer-term strategies that I just wanted to kind of tell you some of the things that we're looking at and doing. Gave you a preview of the financial dashboard, position control. Supplements are kind of interesting. There are some supplements that are tied to people, such as, I have this credential and I get a supplement for that, and some that are tied to function. I might be the golf coach or the whatever coach, and I get a supplement for that function. And I think we can do a stronger job of understanding those supplements and how they're budgeted and where they're budgeted. A lot of them are funded through millage, and those are very well accounted for. It's some of these that, for example, if I'm funded through capital and I get a supplement for my master's degree, is that capital funded or is that general fund funded? So we want to like double check all of those things and make sure that we have wrangled all of that. And I believe the new ERP is going to help us with that.
Nothing come out already?
Yeah, I literally can't wait for that to be done, because that's going to be a game changer for a lot of things and will help us with all of this. But this is a project that I'll be working on with Mr. Dufresne and the payroll folks, and just kind of making sure that we understand these supplements. For example, like I have some in the facilities department that are paid annually versus the most supplements are paid with your biweekly paycheck. So the cadence of payment, the sources of payment, and all of that, we just want to make sure that we understand all that so that it can be managed. Similarly with substitute budgets, there are some substitute functions that are funded by outside business partners. There are some that's just general fund. You need a substitute for the day. I've learned that we have substitute bus drivers, so there's this substitute project number that has an enormous expenditure associated with it, and I want to help us do a better job of managing that and understanding where those expenditures are. So these are all things that we're going to be working on. It's not next week, but things that I think we can do some stronger managerial efforts around some of these so that we understand them better, so that we budget better, so that we can track our spending and understand where we might have issues or where we might have gaps or where we might have opportunities. So, and then the last thing is we'll probably take a look at debt refinancing and if that will gather any savings. Additionally, going forward, we have opportunities for property sales, looking at some cost recovery for damage to things, primarily computers, but occasionally we have a building damage that we need to recover. We'll be looking at school budgets. That's one thing I haven't really looked at yet, so we'll be taking some time to do that over the next few weeks. Mr. Dufresne's team looking at healthcare and risk and how we can save in those areas. Just heard presentation on our strategic facilities plan. The board typically adopts fees intermittently throughout the year. We'd like to try to get that corralled so that it's a once or twice a year type of thing and not a random type of thing. Similarly with position control, we're looking at changing that to a twice per year cadence versus throughout the year so we can keep a better handle on what's happening. Mr. Dufresne's doing some work kind of alongside of the work we're doing in finance to try to get that process managed a little bit more tightly. And then again, focusing on business case analysis, I think there's a lot of opportunities there for us to work with our departments and be stronger. So in summary, like as Mr. Bryan has said, we have competition, right? We've got to look at that through the lens of a competitive environment. A lot of revenue uncertainty. The legislature does different things with revenue pretty much on an annual basis, so trying to keep up with all that and making sure that we understand it and optimize how we work with it. Our service delivery options, what can we provide potentially that could be a business case for revenue, and also looking at services that maybe we shouldn't provide. So all of those things would be in the mix. But I do think as time goes on, we're going to have to be very mindful of how we prioritize our resources. And then next. So closing out 26, that's kind of right on the horizon now. We'll be working on the draft 27 budget. We're looking at tentatively scheduling a workshop with the board in advance of the first budget hearing so we can kind of go over our department budget requests and just make sure everybody's clear on what we're recommending for investment. And then plan to do some modifications between July adoption of the preliminary budget and the September adoption of the budget, and then also working to finalize the sales tax plan. And so I think with that, just want to say that we are proud to support our friends in the academic side of the house and do our best to help them have as many resources possible to do the good work that they're doing. So thank you, and I'm sorry this was way longer and way less entertaining than my normal presentation.
No. There was no dogs in the,
Dean, you got anything?
Or
Dean?
minions.
No?
No, I just try to give everybody else.
I know. Not gonna lie, this is tough information, right? I'm sure it's been tough for everybody. I appreciate the work that you've done, and I think the thing that was missing was communication, because you can raise alarm is not the right term. You can kind of say, hey, we're having some issues, but if you can't, but to be able to communicate it, this is how we got there. This is the plan to get out. This is the path forward. We still have lots of question marks, but to me, that is what gives me confidence as a board member coming up, knowing that you're going to be presenting so much more for us, and of course the budget and all that stuff that you guys have already been very thoughtfully going through. I love the word scrub, and if I had to count how many times you use the word scrub in the presentation, I probably need more than one hand. But this is good work. And it's ongoing, and everybody's having to chip in. And I think it was good for us to be proactive. Mid-year, when you made that request to the departments, it was widely misunderstood across the district.
And not 7% across the district.
I know, we did. We are not firing 7% of our employees. I don't know. It's because school district budgets are complicated. But I thank you for doing this work. And getting your teams aligned, because just as the efforts between student services, school leadership, and curriculum instruction to not be siloed but to come together have made such an impact over the last 3 or 4 years in achieving student success, I believe, and part of it because you're already the facilities person and now you're the finance person, that there has to be a breakdown of silos. I believe that the continued bringing down of the walls that keep all the departments siloed, so that we can, I think that will result in similar effects on our budget because of the communication factor, not just with us and with the public, but within the departments. So even though this is not a rosy presentation like the academic achievement data, but I think that factor, the communication, is what gives me confidence as we walk through this process over the next several months that we're gonna get there. And I appreciate your leadership in that, and that everybody is, you can't be a leader if people aren't following you. you happen to be a leader that people love to follow. And so
Yes.
that is helpful. But also, I want to thank all the people that are following you in the finance and accounting team, the budgeting teams, because, you know, there's been lots of changes in that area. And so kudos to all of those people. And kudos to your facilities team who are picking up some of the slack as you've had to switch hats back and forth all the time. So they always do a great job, but I know, and a couple of them are sitting in here, so thanks to you guys for making it easier for her to be able to do that.
Okay. Ms. Wright?
No, thank you. I mean, I've already expressed my gratitude for your work on this. And this is it's not fun work, but numbers are numbers, and we don't have to be emotional about them. We just need to make sure we're making wise decisions with how we're utilizing resources, because that is the ultimate goal, right, is to maintain the level of service we're providing to our students and making sure they have the best education, and then to do that within the constraints of the budget. So I appreciate your team. I appreciate your team on both ends, because you do have two teams now that you're overseeing. And I say this all the time. I'm like, there is not a better person. I have never heard a single person say a bad word about you, Sue, in the community, and that's a testimony to who you are. So they trust your leadership wholeheartedly. I trust your leadership wholeheartedly. Whatever we can do to make your job easier, please tell us that. And we look forward to this year being a challenging year with opportunities for growth, but it's going to be challenging. It's all right. So we're up for the challenge. So thank you for the work that you put in.
Dr. Rendell?
Yeah, I just want to say that we knew this past year, the current year, was going to be a tough budget year, a challenging budget year, and we did everything we could to not harm the schoolhouse,
Right.
to make sure that if we had to make any reductions, it was at the district office level, district departments, that kind of thing. And we did a good job with that. You know, we've cut a lot of expenses, and as we go towards next year, we still have to get leaner. You know, and again, we're looking for efficiencies, making sure that we're charging everything to a categorical that we can. You know, it's the general fund is what we want to protect. And so making sure that, you know, we're responsible with the money that we have, you know, been entrusted to us, and make sure we're spending it wisely and that kind of thing. And so, you know, Sue has identified, and her team and cabinet have identified a lot of areas for us to reduce expenditures. And again, stay away from, you know, harming the schools as much as possible. When we do open next year, though, those 6-day count meetings are going to be very important, you know, because, you know, if we can, you know, get leaner in some of those areas, and we need to, we will, you know, but right now we want to make sure that the schools have all the supports they need. And, you know, we're moving things, you know, in areas we can to make sure that we, as Mrs. Wright said, maintain that level of support, you know. And the only other thing I have is, can you guys commit to a workshop on July 21st?
Yes.
July 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Sure. Somebody will be there.
Yeah, we'll be able to, yep.
Yeah. It'll have, if as long as it's a daytime meeting, I have a nice.
Yeah, we'll do a 9 a.m. and we'll get it on the calendar.
And I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you for the great teams that we have in facilities and in finance. Like they've really been working hard, and they're doing a great job. So I'm really proud to be part of that team. And so thank you for saying that, Ms. Campbell, Mrs. Wright, because I was trying to remember everything I was supposed to say today, and I didn't quite remember that. So
No.
Well, Mrs. Campbell is right. We know more now about our situation than we did in the past.
Yeah.
So communication, much better.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I do have two quick things, sorry. I'll be quick. I just, because we're only going to be meeting in July the one time, and it's going to be a big budget thing, so I just wanted to ask you that I'd mentioned a while back, I'm not sure who needs to run, you know, can run with this if you guys want to, but there's a pocket of students that are west of University, east of Lipscomb Street, that are currently bused all the way to Riviera, and University Park is down on enrollment, so I didn't mention it before, but it's easy. There's a million things going on. Just want to make sure if we could take a look at it before we get too far down into the summer. And the second thing.
We have a tool we can use.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
The other thing is, I was wondering if I could get on the agenda for the August 11th work session, because I know what we have going on August 28th. It's going to be busy. But for the work session on August 11th, if we could, I would like to get the public comment discussion for our work session on that day. I know Mr. Gibbs had done a
Yeah.
memo to everybody, and I just would like to make that a topic of discussion.
Yep, absolutely, yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Everybody good? Anybody else have anything else to talk about?
Yeah, we do have some evaluations we have to work on.
Oh, yeah, that needs to probably be,
Yeah, we've got some other. If we, I don't know, well, I don't know if we can get it all done. You have yours done? I was gonna say, could we combine the July 21st thing if it's not gonna take very long with, because Paul's is due first.
Yeah, we do Paul's, yep.
But that depends on if Paul's ready.
I haven't got it ready because I don't know what tool I'm using to evaluate
Oh,
it. So
that could be a
we
problem.
made the revisions to the tool that you guys previously discussed. If you're good with me going under that, I can work to have that done by the 21st.
But
I think we
but
have to
that
give you-
means we have to read it, and I
Right.
think that may be too soon.
Right?
You
That's
could-
fine too.
You could review it on the 21st and act on it on the 28th, or?
Yeah, however you guys want.
that's true.
Because he has to get it done and then send it off.
Don't we give you, don't you have to have 30 days contractually or something, isn't it?
It's fine. I'll get it
I know,
done.
but I don't want to ask you to do something that's outside of your contract.
Yeah, no, I'll get it done. and get to
like-
you. I just didn't know which one I was going under
Okay.
because
It's not a hostile
we've
work
amended the one tool to what you guys discussed at that meeting. So, right, and it hasn't been board approved yet. So I'm like, am I still using the old one or the new
Oh,
one?
I
I'm
see what
fine
you're
with
looking
either
for.
one.
Well, even though it's over a month, what I don't want to pressure is for Paul to have to get it done, get it out to us review it, us to do the evaluation and be ready to talk about it on the 21st. That's way too soon, I think, because it takes Lena several weeks just to track us down and make sure that we got it done. Our part. So, and Paul, it's a pretty large document that he prepares. Well, it's not as big as his,
Yeah,
but,
it's not superintendent size, so.
yeah.
Do they need do they need to approve the tool before you can use
If
it?
they tell me to use the old tool, I'll evaluate myself under the old tool and they can formally approve it later on. That's fine.
Approve it on the 21st and then formally approve it on the 28th.
The 21st is just going to be a workshop,
Yeah,
not a
just a
board
work
meeting.
We
session
can
on the
add a
21st.
school board meeting on it.
What, for the tool?
Does
I mean,
it-
are you asking for some direction today?
If you guys say use the new tool, I'm good. If you guys are good with it. I didn't know if you guys had any more changes to it.
I'm okay with it.
I mean, it was between the two of you guys, so I'm assuming you had some input? Do you feel like you had fair
I
input?
mean, yeah, you guys all provided the input. I went back and re-listened to make sure I caught it all and I sent it.
Let's do it.
Not moving on.
All right, let's move with the new tool.
Yeah.
So we can try to, if we need board approval for the tool, then we can put a quick board meeting on the 21st. And then we can approve it, and then we can approve your entire evaluation on the 28th.
I don't
That's
feel
the
like it's
schedule.
anything we ever voted on.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever, I
Okay.
inherited
If we
it
do,
from
we can do it.
Amy, so.
If we do, we can do it. All right, well, good? Anybody else? All right. With all that being said, meeting's adjourned.